Chapter 2733. The High God, Assembly Zhuan said lazily, "Elder, there are some things I can compromise on, but when it comes to my principles, I won't back down, especially when it comes to people like Huang Yi, who provokes me. I'll beat them up one by one. I won't show any mercy." The enforcement elder gave Zhuan a deep look and sighed. "Do as you wish. However, you have to be careful of Huang Yi. He will also be participating in the High God Assembly. Given his connections and methods, I'm afraid he'll be able to gather many powerful cultivators. When the time comes, he'll definitely make a move against you." Zhuan nodded. He didn't care much about Huang Yi. In other words, Zhuan didn't care about any of the younger generation participating in the High God Assembly. Zhuan knew very well that his current strength far surpassed his peers. Although his aura was only that of the Heavenly Tao Master, his strength had already surpassed first-step Tao confirmation cultivators. Moreover, with the terrifying Ho-E Divine Arrow, Zhuan even had the power to kill an eternal overlord. Since the High God Assembly was only for the younger generation of the Huangji clan under the age of 1,000, any cultivator of the younger generation who could reach the first stage of the second step of Tao confirmation, such as the Master of Destiny, would be heaven-defying geniuses. As for a cultivator like the Heavenly Fate Lord, Zhuan really didn't think much of him. The enforcement elder frowned slightly when he saw that Zhuan didn't care. He didn't like Zhuan's attitude. However, the enforcement elder felt helpless. After all, he had personally invited this hot potato to the High God Assembly. There are still 3 days before the High God Assembly. Don't wander around during these 3 days. Otherwise, you'll get into trouble again. The law-enforcing elder instructed before he left the place. After this incident, Zhuan and Chen Fei didn't have any desire to continue strolling around. They returned to the Hall of Beheadings to prepare for the High God Assembly in 3 days. When Zhuan returned to his room, he activated the restriction and began to study alchemy and array Tao again. During this period of time, while he was improving his alchemy Tao, he did not lag behind in the aspect of array Tao either. Now, he was already a Heavenly Tao Array Tao Master. Furthermore, he had obtained the Array Tao inheritance left behind by Master Yuan Hui. This had greatly inspired Zhuan. Zhuan now felt that he was not far from becoming a primordial Tao Array Master. In these 3 days, he continued to study the Tao of formations. Perhaps he might have a breakthrough. 3 days quickly flew by. Zhuan, who was sitting cross-legged in a dark room, suddenly opened his eyes. Zhuan's eyes shone with an unbearable light as a terrifying invisible ripple extended from his forehead. This ripple was not the energy of the heavenly Tao, but a kind of powerful spiritual energy. However, Zhuan quickly retracted the power of this invisible ripple. "It seems like I have successfully broken through to the primordial Tao Array Tao Master. Master Yuan Hui's understanding of Array Tao is indeed extraordinary. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to break through so quickly," Zhuan muttered to himself with a smile on his face. In these 3 days, Zhuan had not only made a breakthrough in the Array Tao, but also in the Alchemy Tao. In these 3 days, Zhuan had refined over a dozen furnaces of Heavenly Fate pills. Although he failed every time, the number of half-finished Heavenly Fate pills he could refine had increased. When Zhuan's last batch of Heavenly Fate pills came out of the furnace, it was filled with half-finished Heavenly Fate pills. It could be said that Zhuan's alchemy Tao was getting closer and closer to the Heavenly Fate realm. At the very least, Zhuan could successfully refine half-finished Heavenly Fate pills. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door, followed by Chen Fei's voice. Zhuan knew that Chen Fei had called him out. The Flourishing God Assembly was about to begin today. When he opened the door, Zhuowen saw Chun Fa standing respectfully behind the law enforcement elder. Behind the law enforcement elder were 5 disciples. These 5 disciples were 3 men and 2 women. Zhuowen was no stranger to these 5 disciples. They were all disciples of the Hall of Penal Law and could be considered as the elite disciples of the Hall of Penal Law. They were also the representatives of the Hall of Penal Law to participate in the Flourishing God Assembly. Senior Brother Zhuo. When the 5 saw Zhuowen open the door, they respectfully cupped their hands and saluted. Zhuowen's strength had already been widely spread in the Hall of Penal Law when Zhuowen defeated Zhou Ling. Now, all the disciples in the Hall of Penal Law knew that the white-clothed youth from the Hall of Penal Law was very strong and had defeated Deputy Hall Master Zhou Ling. Humph, what a rude guy. You actually made everyone wait for you. Your personality is still as arrogant and despotic as before. A neither cold nor cold voice sounded. Zhuowen turned his head and saw a bloated figure standing on the other side of the law enforcement elder. Wasn't this the Deputy Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Law, Zhou Ling, who had been knocked unconscious by Zhuowen? At this moment, Zhou Ling saw Zhuowen's gaze fall on him and immediately became nervous. The scene of him being beaten up by Zhuowen was still vivid in his mind. Zhuowen couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the clown Zhou Ling. Instead, he looked at Chun Fa on the other side and smiled. Congratulations, Brother Chun. You've successfully become a half-step Heaven's Will Master. At this moment, Chun Fa's smile was like a blooming chrysanthemum. It was extremely brilliant. He sincerely cupped his hands towards Zhuowen and said, Brother Zhuowen is too polite. If it weren't for your half-finished Heaven's Will pill, I wouldn't have been able to reach the half-step Heaven's Will realm in such a short time. When Chun Fa said this, the surroundings were in an uproar. Even the law enforcement elder looked at Zhuowen in surprise. Chun Fa's sudden promotion to half-step Heaven's Will Master caused an uproar in the Hall of Penal Law. All the disciples, and even the law enforcement elder, were guessing the specific reason why Chun Fa had become a half-step Heaven's Will Master. Now it seemed that it was because of the half-finished Heaven's Will pill that Zhuowen had given them. Zhuowen, you're really generous. The half-finished Heaven's Will pill should be quite useful to you. Giving it to Chun Fa, this is really good. The law enforcement elder said with a faint smile. Zhuowen only nodded and didn't say much. The half-finished Heaven's Will pill was personally refined by him. If he wanted it, it would be very easy for him to get it. All right, let's go to the plaza. Seeing that Zhuowen didn't want to say more, the law enforcement elder didn't intend to ask any more. He shouted and led the group out of the Hall of Penal Law. At this moment, the plaza was extremely lively. The crowd was like a dragon, bustling with activity. At this moment, the plaza was completely built. At the edge of the plaza, there was a tall railing. The surface of these railings was overflowing with colors and emitted an extremely powerful restrictive light. It was obvious that these railings weren't ordinary objects. They were probably formed by powerful restrictive spells. At this moment, the cultivators who came to the plaza were blocked outside by these railings. At the center of the plaza stood an extremely tall tower. At the top of this tower, there was a bracket. Zhuowen knew that this bracket should be where the Huangji family's supreme treasure, the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror, was placed. As soon as Zhuowen entered the plaza, he felt several gazes fall on him. Moreover, these gazes contained inexplicable hostility. Chapter 2734. Galaxy of Stars' second brother. Is this the audacious guy? At this moment, many figures had gathered around Huang Yi. One of them was a handsome young man with a unique temperament and a vast aura. He patted Huang Yi's shoulder, whose eyes were filled with killing intent, and smiled at Zhuowen. Originally, the people around Huang Yi were chatting happily, but after the young man spoke, everyone quieted down. Everyone looked at the young man with eyes full of awe. This extremely handsome young man was no stranger to everyone. He was the youngest heir of the Huangji family, the fifth heir of the Galaxy of Stars. Galaxy of Stars had only cultivated for 500 years and was already at the peak of Hunyuan Master. In the Huangji family, Galaxy of Stars cultivation speed was even more terrifying than that of Huangji family's number one genius, Huang Wuqi. It should be known that Huang Wuqi was extremely talented and had cultivated to the peak of Hunyuan Master before he was 600 years old. Galaxy of Stars, on the other hand, was already at the peak of Hunyuan Master before he was 500 years old. This was even more amazing than Huang Wuqi back then. In terms of aptitude, Galaxy of Stars was definitely the strongest among the five heirs. Even Huang Wuqi was slightly inferior. However, Huang Wuqi had cultivated much longer than Galaxy of Stars and was the eldest son. Now that he was an eternal overlord, he already held a high position in the Huangji family. In terms of status, Galaxy of Stars was far inferior to Galaxy of Stars. Of course, everyone in the Huangji family knew that it was only a matter of time before Galaxy of Stars reached Huang Wuqi's current height. Moreover, what made them even more awed was that the three heads of the Huangji family and the popular Huang Wuqi loved Galaxy of Stars even more. Especially Huang Wuqi, when he had time, he would often take the time to guide Galaxy of Stars in his cultivation. In the Huangji family, only Galaxy of Stars could receive such treatment. When Huang Yi saw that it was Galaxy of Stars, his face immediately revealed a flattering smile. He didn't dare to treat this person in front of him as a younger brother. This was a true genius of the Huangji aristocratic family. His status was far above his, so he did not dare to slight him. Xinghe, you came at the right time. That person is the Zhuowen that I told you about. He is simply arrogant and doesn't put our crown prince in his eyes. Previously, he actually slapped my face ruthlessly. Huang Yi quickly said. Galaxy of Stars glanced at Huang Yi and curiously looked at Zhuowen. Second brother, this man is only the heavenly Tao master. I heard that your right hand was crippled by him. Galaxy of Stars' words were full of sarcasm, but Huang Yi didn't seem to hear the sarcasm in Galaxy of Stars' words. He still smiled and nodded repeatedly. Galaxy, he is too arrogant this time. After I was defeated, he spread the word that the crown princes are all trash. I was so angry that my right hand was crippled by him. Huang Yi sighed. Originally, Lu Qi wanted to take action. But the hateful thing is that the enforcement elder actually sided with this bastard. Galaxy, can you tolerate this? Galaxy of Stars smirked and glanced at Huang Yi. He could see that Huang Yi had a good plan, but he didn't intend to expose his lie. Instead, he said indifferently, this man is indeed very arrogant. From the looks of it, Elder of Enforcement is biased toward this kid. Yang Qi said, it seems he thinks he'll be able to achieve great results in the High God Assembly. Second brother, you're a piece of trash, but you were crippled by the Heavenly Tao Lord. If I am lucky enough to meet this guy in the High God Assembly, I will help you deal with him. After saying that, Galaxy of Stars lazily leaned on the side and looked at the tower in the center of the plaza. He was participating in the High God Assembly to become a Heaven's Will Master. His current realm was already very high. As long as he wanted to, he could become a half-step Heaven's Will Master at any time. However, he suppressed his realm and planned to break through to the Heaven's Will Master realm in one go during the High God Assembly. It should be known that the Sun-Moon demonic mirror was the most precious treasure of the Huangji clan. It contained the power of the ancestral shaman venomous insect. He was 80% confident that he could use the mirror's power to become a heaven's will master. Huang Yi glanced at Galaxy of Stars lazily leaning on the wall, and his face turned gloomy. Originally, he wanted Galaxy of Stars to teach Zhuowen a lesson. Unfortunately, Galaxy of Stars didn't care about his brotherly feelings. Huang Yi sighed inwardly. Galaxy of Stars had a cold temperament and looked down on his brothers. Even if he was beaten to death by Zhuowen, this guy wouldn't even frown. This guy was a ruthless person who was willing to pay any price and use any means to obtain greater power. Since Galaxy of Stars couldn't be relied on, Huang Yi knew that he could only rely on himself to eliminate Zhuowen. Huang Yi had prepared a lot of backup plans for this flourishing god assembly. He had gathered a group of talented disciples from the Huangji family. Once the flourishing god assembly began, Huang Yi would immediately look for Zhuowen, planning to kill him. Of course, Huang Yi had paid quite a price for this encirclement. After all, he wasn't like Galaxy of Stars. He didn't need to pay a price for many people to curry favor with him. Naturally, he needed to pay a certain amount of compensation for asking for help. Huang Yi's heart ached when he thought about how those geniuses had asked for an exorbitant price. At the same time, his hatred for Zhuowen grew. If it weren't for this kid, he wouldn't have become a laughingstock. He also wouldn't have had to spend so much effort to win over others and pay such a huge price. When the High God Assembly starts, I must make this kid kneel before me and let him have a taste of humiliation. Huang Yi looked in Zhuowen's direction and clenched his teeth, his hatred soaring to the sky. Zhuowen completely ignored Huang Yi. Instead, he was looking at the handsome youth not far away. This handsome youth shouldn't be very old, but his aura was much stronger than Huang Yi's. He could definitely be considered a genius among the younger generation. Brother Zhuo, that's the 5th prince of the Huangji clan, Galaxy of Stars. He's the most terrifying genius among the 5 princes. He's less than 500 years old, but he's already a peak primordial chaos master. Even the eldest prince, Huang Wuqi, wasn't as monstrous as him back then. Chen Fa, who was standing beside Zhuowen, said softly when he saw Zhuowen looking at Galaxy of Stars. Zhuowen nodded. Chen Fa had told him a lot about the High God Assembly, especially about Galaxy of Stars. Chen Fa had mentioned him a lot. Although Galaxy of Stars was only a peak primordial chaos master, his combat strength was much stronger than his cultivation level. It was said that when Galaxy of Stars was at the peak of primordial chaos master, he had killed Destiny Master Almighty with his bare hands. This matter had caused a sensation in the host region. He was able to challenge and kill a mighty figure at the 2nd step of the Dao validation, with his cultivation base at the 1st step of the Dao validation realm. Chapter 2735. Master of the Huangji family even in a Dao Palace level force. It was extremely rare for a genius to appear who could kill a master of heavens while who was an entire realm above him. Of course, the Dao Palace faction was a colossus, and there were still many prodigies like this. However, they were considered rare among the Dao Palace factions. The Galaxy of Stars even seemed to have attracted the attention of the 5 Dao Palace factions in the host territory. Of course, this was just attention. The Dao Palace faction's requirements for accepting disciples were abnormally high. Huang Wuqi was already crazy enough. It was said that Huang Wuqi had to be half a step into the 3rd step before he could have a chance of entering the Dao Palace faction. Of course, the harsh requirements of the Dao Palace faction were only for other factions. The requirements were much lower for local cultivators of the Dao Palace faction. After all, outsiders would always be outsiders. The Galaxy of Stars wasn't the only prodigy who had attracted the attention of the Dao Palace factions. There were also many prodigies in the host territory who had attracted the attention of the Dao Palace factions. There were even a few cases where the Dao Palace factions had accepted such prodigies before they had even proven their Dao because they were so heaven-defying. This matter had a far-reaching impact in the host territory and was widely spread. Chen Fa sighed softly when he saw that Zhuowen didn't seem to care. He felt that Zhuowen was too confident in himself. Zhuowen had previously displayed a move and defeated Zhou Ling, the Vice Hall Master of the Disciplinary Hall. However, to the galaxy of stars, Zhou Ling was just an ant that could be killed with a flip of his hand. The galaxy of stars would probably be able to cripple Zhou Ling in one move. However, judging from Zhuowen's previous performance, he was still inferior to the galaxy of stars. Chen Fa was very smart. He knew that if he continued speaking, it would obviously show that he didn't have confidence in Zhuowen. This would only make Zhuowen unhappy. You only know how to cause trouble for the disciplinary hall. If it weren't for the disciplinary elder protecting you, you would probably have died at the second prince's hands, Zhou Ling said in an extremely displeased tone. Vice Hall Master Zhou, if you don't like it, then bring it on. Let's see who's the real deal. Don't be like a meddlesome woman gossiping at the side. Zhuowen glanced at Zhou Ling indifferently and said without any trace of politeness. These words caused Chen Fa and the other disciples to secretly laugh. Although Zhou Ling was the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws, this fellow did not have much real ability. He was only able to become the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws because he was good at sucking up to the second prince. What's more, this guy liked to order people around, and the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions were no exception. That was why the disciples of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions didn't like the Vice Hall Master at all. Now that they saw Zhou Ling suffer a loss in front of Zhuowen, they all felt great satisfaction. Zhou Ling was furious as she glared at Zhuowen. However, she quietly retreated a few steps behind the disciplinary elder and looked at Zhuowen fearfully. He knew very well that although this white-clothed youth's aura was only that of a heavenly Dao master on the surface, his true strength was extremely terrifying. Having suffered a loss last time, Zhou Ling naturally did not dare to fight with Zhuowen again. Otherwise, wouldn't that be asking for a beating? If you don't dare, then shut your mouth. If you say another word, don't blame me for being merciless. Zhuowen sneered disdainfully. Zhou Ling trembled with anger, but did not dare to act out. He knew very well that this white-clothed youth before him would do as he said. If he fought here, then he would definitely end up like the Hall of Penal Laws, or even worse. After all, the Hall of Penal Laws was their own territory, and this place was under the watchful eyes of everyone. If he, the Vice Hall Master of the Hall of Penal Laws, was defeated by an unknown disciple here, he would really lose all face. Thinking of this, Zhou Ling no longer spoke. Instead, she snorted coldly and turned her face away. The disciplinary elder stood on the spot and turned a blind eye to the conflict between Zhuowen and Zhou Ling. Instead, he said indifferently, "When the Flourishing God Conference begins, the first master will activate the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. At that time, all you need to do is enter the fence by yourselves." "Elder, what are the rules of the Flourishing God Conference?" Zhuowen asked. "I'm not too sure about the specific rules of the Flourishing God Conference. When the first master appears, he will naturally explain. However, I'm guessing that it must be related to the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. For all of you who are participating in the Flourishing God Conference, it will only be beneficial and not harmful. Moreover, the participants this time are all disciples of the Huangji aristocratic family. The first head can't really let you all kill each other and won't make this gathering too extreme. Zhuowen, you don't have to worry about it. At this point, elder of law enforcement, glanced at Zhuo Wen with a meaningful look. Zhuo Wen nodded. He understood the disciplinary elder's meaning. Clearly, he was reminding Zhuo Wen not to worry too much about Huang Yi. This time, I hope everyone will work hard and obtain a good ranking for our Hall of Penal Law, the disciplinary elder said. Apart from Zhuo Wen, Chen Fa and the others responded excitedly to the disciplinary elder. After a while, the noisy square quieted down, which attracted the attention of Zhuo Wen and the others. At the front of the square, the gate of the magnificent palace slowly opened, and two stalwart figures walked out from within. Behind the two stalwart figures were more than 10 people, each of whom had an extremely strong aura. Zhuo Wen looked at this group of people and narrowed his eyes. These more than 10 people were all supreme powerhouses in the second step of Dao validation, especially the two people in front. Their auras gave him a feeling that he could not see through them. Brother Chen, could these two fellows be the heads of the Huangji family? Zhuo Wen asked Chen Fa, who was beside him. Chen Fa nodded. His gaze revealed reverence as he said, "Yes, one of them is the first master. The other is the second master, whereas the long-haired man behind the two masters is the eldest heir, Huang Wuqi, whereas the others are all the core higher-ups of the Huangji clan. Usually it is rare to see these higher-ups, but now they have all come out for the Flourishing God Conference. It can be seen that they attach great importance to this Flourishing God Conference." Hearing that, Zhuo Wen's gaze fell on the two heads again. The leader was a handsome young man who looked to be only 15 years old. However, he had a bald head. At first glance, he looked very much like a pure and innocent young novice monk. The second master was a fat man who looked like a mountain of meat. The second master's obesity was much more terrifying than Zhou Ling's. 3 Zhou spirits would probably only be on par with this second master. As for the first master, Huang Wuqi, behind the first master and second master, Huang Shan, his appearance was much more normal. His appearance was very ordinary, but his eyes shone with an extraordinary light. It could be seen that this person was not ordinary. Zhuo Wen sensed that Huang Wuqi's aura was much stronger than Kong Shi's. If Huang Wuqi were to face Kong Shi, he would be able to easily defeat him. Zhuo Wen heaved a sigh of relief when he did not see Huang Lin behind him. Chapter 2736. Entering the sun-moon demonic mirror, however, Zhuo Wen was worried that Fu Qi would recognize him. After all, when he killed Ping Han, a trace of Fu Qi's primordial spirit had seen his face and sensed his aura. If Fu Qi also came to the square, it would be easy for him to recognize him. At that time, Fu Qi would definitely find trouble with him. Moreover, Huang Lin would also help him out for Fu Qi's sake. Now that Huang Lin had not returned, it was undoubtedly the best news for Zhuo Wen. The great master, Huang Wu, walked to the front of the plaza. After exchanging some pleasantries, he said in a clear voice, "My Huangji family has a total of 108 halls. Every hall has its own position and its own genius. Today, I, Huang Wu, would like to express my gratitude to all 108 halls for taking out the sun-moon demonic mirror to host the High God Assembly. In the High God Assembly, the stronger you are, the more benefits you will receive. If you want more benefits, you have to become stronger." Speaking until here, Huang Wu waved his sleeve. A ray of light shot out from his sleeve and landed on the tower in the center of the square. Immediately, a ray of dim light spread out. Then, everyone saw a boundary formed by the dim light in a radius of 300 feet around the center of the square. The boundary of the boundary happened to be the fence that had been set up around the square. The sun-moon demonic mirror's power can affect the surrounding space. Within this radius of 300 feet, there is an endless world. In this endless world, there are many broken mirror pieces. These mirror pieces are the demonic mirror avatars that the sun-moon demonic mirror had nurtured for tens of thousands of years. They contain the essence of the sun-moon demonic mirror. This demonic mirror avatar was broken by me, second brother, and third brother. The broken mirror pieces are not dangerous to you, but you still have to be careful. Although they are just mirror pieces, their offensive power is extremely terrifying. Once you subdue the mirror pieces, you can immediately absorb the essence of the mirror pieces and increase your cultivation. As for the benefits of the mirror pieces, I don't need to tell you. I'm sure all of you have heard about it from your hall masters. After the barrier was formed, Huangwu placed his hands behind his back. Although his voice was very soft, it was exceptionally loud. It resounded in everyone's ears like an echo in an empty valley. Even the lazy galaxy of stars became spirited after hearing Huangwu's words. Their eyes were full of passion. He was already very close to reaching the second step of Tao corroboration, and this time he wanted to obtain the opportunity to advance to the second step of Tao corroboration. Zhuan's eyes shone like lightning. The mirror of the sun-moon demonic mirror clone should contain the power of the ancestor wizard goo worms, which would bring unspeakable benefits to both his true body and his clone. The surrounding crowd was already in an uproar. They knew that the energy in the sun-moon demon mirror that could increase one's cultivation should be the fragment of the demon mirror. Of course, Zhuan fought deeper than the others. The three heads of the Huangji clan had joined forces to barely break the demon mirror clone. This showed that the sun-moon demon mirror was not simple, and its power was absolutely monstrous. However, at the same time, it also meant that the power within the sun-moon demon mirror was actually unable to be controlled by the three heads of the Huangji clan. Therefore, they would shatter the doppelgangers that the demon mirror gave birth to after a period of time. Their goal was to weaken the power of the demon mirror and make it easier to control. Thinking of this, Zhuan became even more restless. His purpose for participating in the High God Conference was very clear. It was to obtain the ancestor wizard goo worms. If the sun-moon demon mirror was completely under the control of Huangwu and the others, it would not be easy for him to obtain and absorb the ancestor wizard goo worms. Now that the sun-moon demon mirror was not completely under the control of Huangwu and the others, Zhuan still had a chance. Also, after you enter the endless world of the sun-moon demonic mirror, you can use any means you can think of to obtain it, because the cultivators who die in the endless world will not truly die. Instead, they will be teleported out of the endless world. However, there's also a corresponding price to pay. That is, the energy of the mirror shards absorbed by the cultivators who died in the endless world will all be transferred to the winner's body. And for the next month, the winner will be in a weak state. Huangwu continued to speak, and the discussion below became much quieter. Many disciples were frowning. Obviously, Huangwu's rule was to let the cultivators who participated in the High God Conference kill each other. Fortunately, death in the endless world was not a true death. However, they would not be able to obtain any benefits and would be weakened for a month. This was definitely not good news for the cultivators who had a strong purpose. Then, I wish you all good luck. The High God Conference will last for a year. After a year, the sun-moon demon mirror will release the boundary. Huangwu smiled and waved his sleeve, opening more than 10 gaps in the fence around the square. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The moment the gaps appeared, some cultivators could not wait any longer. They flew out like a hurricane and entered the boundary. Zhuan, Patriarch Law Enforcement, said, "If you have the energy to spare, take care of the disciples from the Hall of Beheadings and Executions. If you don't, then forget about it. Make sure you can protect yourself, and don't get eliminated." Zhuan found it funny. The enforcement elder was as calm as water at the beginning. Now that the High God Conference had begun, he became nervous. Elder, don't worry. I will take care of the disciples of the Hall of Penal Law. Also, this time, Zhuowen, will help your Hall of Penal Law win the first place, Zhuowen said with a smile. Hurry up and enter. The enforcement elder did not care about Zhuowen's words. In his heart, he thought that Zhuowen was just boasting. Zhuowen did not explain. He did have the confidence, but there was no need to explain it to the enforcement elder. When the time came, it would be more effective for the enforcement elder to see. Zhuowen walked in the front, while Qinefe and the other 6 people followed closely behind Zhuowen. They all knew that Zhuowen was not simple. They wanted to follow Zhuowen, hoping that they could stick together and survive this year. As soon as he entered the boundary, Zhuowen saw the scenery in front of him quickly passing by. It was as if he, Zhuowen, had flipped through an endless world and seen endless sceneries. In the end, Zhuowen stood in the middle of a desolate desert. Above his head were 9 scorching suns, and above him were 9 huge suns. The heat emitted by each sun was extremely shocking. The golden desert under Zhuowen's feet seemed to be unable to withstand the high temperature. Large areas of the desert were scorched black. Zhuowen looked around and found that Qinefe and the others were not behind him. In this desert, he stood alone. It seems that entering this endless world is random. Chapter 2737. Searching for the venomous wizard worm, however. Zhuowen soon discovered that his divine sense was blocked by a powerful force, so his divine sense could only extend to a range of 100 meters. Zhuowen's current divine sense was extremely powerful. It could extend as far as the entire Dafan domain, but it could only extend to a range of 100 meters here. Zhuowen knew that there should be a powerful force shrouding the endless world. It was this force that repelled all other forces that entered this world. The endless world was simply too vast. To the endless world, 100 meters was simply a drop in the ocean. If he only relied on his divine sense to search for the sun-moon demonic mirror fragment, he did not know how long it would take. Moreover, Zhuowen was now eager to know the location of the venomous wizard worm hidden in the sun-moon demonic mirror. After all, this venomous wizard worm was the key to whether his Pangu's sacred body could successfully advance to the 4-star realm. Zhuowen stopped on a small sand dune, withdrew his divine sense, closed his eyes, and began to sense with his own Zhurong venomous worm. The 12 ancestors of sorcery were natural enemies. Since he had the Zhurong venomous worm, he could naturally sense the other venomous wizard worm in the sun-moon demonic mirror. Zhuowen opened his eyes. Soon after, he extended his right hand through the air, and a bright red flame appeared at the center of his palm. The flame looked like a venomous wizard worm. As soon as it appeared, it chose a direction and shot out. It was formed by a trace of the essence of the Zhurong venomous worm. It was like a clone of the Zhurong venomous worm and was extremely sensitive to other venomous wizard worms. Zhuowen followed closely behind the flame and swept out like an aurora. Zhuowen had been traveling in this desert for 3 days and 3 nights, but he was still in the desert. This showed how vast this desert was. In the process of traveling, Zhuowen also found that he did not meet many other practitioners who had entered the endless world. It should be known that there were at least thousands of practitioners who had entered the endless world. However, he had not met anyone after traveling for 3 days and 3 nights. This showed how vast the endless world was. Boom! After flying for 2 days and 2 nights, Zhuowen saw the edge of the desert. At the edge of the desert was another landscape world. There was a lush green prairie, and its area was comparable to the desert. However, at the edge of the desert, a terrifying energy exploded, sweeping out a terrifying storm. instantly enveloping Zhuowen's figure. Ha ha, another fat sheep. Sure enough, guarding the borders of these two worlds was the best choice. In just 5 days, we've already reaped 2 rewards. A voice that was filled with wild joy was transmitted from under the sand. Immediately, a sand dune not far from the storm broke apart, and 2 men rushed out. Among them, the green-clothed man's voice was more arrogant. He looked at Zhuowen, who was swept into the storm, and laughed loudly. His eyes were filled with joy. On the other hand, the white-clothed man beside the green-clothed man was much calmer. He shook his head and said, "The High God Convention has just begun. It's really not worth it for you to act so quickly. Some practitioners haven't even found the demon mirror fragment yet." The green-clothed man did not take it seriously and said, "We've been waiting here all this time. Now, we're just familiarizing ourselves with it and experimenting. When the time comes, we'll act again in a few months. Isn't it the same? All of this is to increase our chances of catching him." The white-clothed man did not answer. Instead, he looked at the storm and said, "Let's undo this formation first. After all, this is an origin grade formation. The practitioner who entered the formation just now was only a heavenly Tao master. I'm afraid he'll die, without a doubt." The green-clothed man chuckled. Just as he was about to undo the formation, his pupils shrank as he discovered that the storm that seemed capable of reaching the heavens had collapsed in an instant, dispersing into dust. Amidst the dust, a young man in snow-white clothes slowly walked out. Zhuowen's eyes were like torches as he stared coldly at the stiffened green-clothed man and white-clothed man below him. He asked, "Did you guys deliberately set up this formation here?" The green-clothed man frowned slightly and did not answer Zhuowen's question. Instead, he asked rudely, "You're also a divine array master?" Zhuowen did not say anything else. Instead, he stretched out his right hand and punched at the green-clothed man. The green-clothed man was only a heavenly Tao master. How dare he deliberately set up a formation to kill him? Zhuowen was not so good-tempered that he would pretend that nothing had happened. Of course, since the green-clothed man and the white-clothed man were able to possess an origin-grade formation, it was obvious that they were rich. "How dare a mere heavenly Tao master attack me? You're courting death." The green-clothed man sneered. He also clenched his right hand into a fist and punched it out toward Zhuowen. Crack! Unfortunately, the green-clothed man's right fist was instantly smashed into a cloud of blood mist. Then the green-clothed man screamed in agony as his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. He could not be more dead than he was. The white-clothed man, who had been watching the show, was stunned. He could not believe what he had seen. The white-clothed young man, who was only a heavenly Tao master, had killed his companion in one move. What kind of strength did that require? "Let's go." The white-clothed man realized that something was amiss. After he came to his senses, he immediately fled in the opposite direction at an extremely fast speed. Unfortunately, no matter how fast the white-clothed man was, could he be faster than Zhuowen? Not long after he had fled, the white-clothed man screamed in agony and followed in the footsteps of the green-clothed man. After killing the 2 men, Zhuowen discovered that there were 8 thumb-sized green lights that flew out from their bodies. These green lights contained something similar to mirror fragments. Zhuowen knew that these things should be the fragments of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror Avatar that Huangwu had mentioned before. At the moment when these 8 green lights entered his body, Zhuowen immediately felt that his cultivation in his body seemed to have improved a little. Although the improvement was negligible, it was enough to shock Zhuowen. It should be known that the difficulty of improving the cultivation of Zhuowen's original body was much more difficult than that of ordinary practitioners. No one knew that when he had been promoted to Heavenly Tao Master, he had used a pile of special grade Heavenly Tao origin crystals to barely be promoted. Now, just by absorbing 8 fragments of the Sun Moon Demon Mirror avatar, he could clearly feel the improvement of his cultivation. It could be seen that the energy contained in the Demon Mirror avatar was very beneficial to his cultivation. Thinking of the various benefits of these fragments, Zhuowen's heart was filled with enthusiasm. He knew that as long as there were enough fragments of the Sun Moon Demon Mirror avatar, it should be more than enough for his original body to be promoted to Daoyuan Master. However, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to find the Demon Mirror avatar. Instead, he planned to use the Zhurong venomous insect to find the location of the ancestral wizard venomous insect hidden in the Sun Moon Demon Mirror avatar. Chapter 2738. Shan Tianlong Zhuwen continued to move forward. What he didn't know was that in the endless world of the Sun Moon demonic mirror, many cultivators were constantly searching for the demonic mirror fragments. At the same time, terrifying battles broke out all over the endless world as they fought for the demonic mirror fragments. However, everyone knew that these were just small skirmishes. The more time passed, the stronger the remaining cultivators would be. When the time came, it would be a real fierce battle. As long as one could kill the other, they would be able to obtain more energy and break through to a higher realm. In the lush forest, a handsome young man shot out like a cheetah and kicked the back of the head of a cultivator who was advancing. Bam! The cultivator was caught off guard and was kicked in the face. He fell to the ground, dead as can be. It's the 5th prince, Galaxy of Stars. Let's run. The companions of the other 2 cultivators who were ambushed didn't expect that someone would suddenly attack them. By the time they realized it, their companions were already dead. When they saw the face of the person who ambushed them, they screamed and ran away immediately, not daring to have any thoughts of fighting. Galaxy of Stars was one of the seeded contestants of the High God Conference. They knew that they would definitely lose if they encountered such a person. Unfortunately, Huang Xinghe did not intend to let the 2 of them leave. With a leap, he flew through the air like a ghost. 2 miserable shrieks were heard as the 2 of them were dealt with by Huang Xinghe alone. Galaxy of Stars stood on the spot, his eyes scarlet and filled with bloodlust. More than 10 green lights shot out from the corpses of the 3 cultivators and merged into his body. As expected of the Sun Moon demonic mirror, these demonic mirror fragments are really useful to me. As long as I get enough demonic mirror fragments, I won't have to worry about not being able to reach the 2nd step. Huang Xinghe laughed heartily and disappeared from where he stood. He planned to continue searching for the demonic mirror fragments. Of course, he wouldn't show any mercy to the cultivators he met along the way. He would kill them and take the demonic mirror fragments from them. 5th younger brother is really crazy. It seemed like there were only a few disciples among the participants of the High God competition who could restrain him. Once 5th younger brother successfully breaks through to the Heavenly Fate Lord realm, I don't think any of the participants can compete with him. Not long after Galaxy of Stars left, a refined man slowly walked out from the depths of the forest. He looked like he was in his 30s. If there was someone here, they would be able to Lu e-translation. This was because he was Huang Ju, the 4th prince of the Huang Ji family. Huang Ju was an extremely low-profile person. Although his talent wasn't as good as Huang Xinghe's, he was still much stronger than ordinary geniuses. However, his scheming was much deeper than Huang Xinghe's. However, the crazier 5th brother is, the better it is for me. If there is a chance, 5th brother, don't blame me for not caring about our brotherhood. Huang Ju smiled as he muttered to himself. Outside the Sun Moon demonic mirror, there was a huge square. Many cultivators were surrounding the fence, but their gazes were fixed on the barrier within the fence. Through the barrier, they discovered that the cultivators who entered the barrier were all involuntarily sitting cross-legged on the ground with their eyes closed, as if they had fallen into some kind of meditation. At the same time, some of the cultivators inside the barrier slowly opened their eyes, revealing a confused expression. However, before these cultivators could get up, a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas came crashing down. Then, these cultivators were involuntarily pushed out of the range of the fence. The faces of the hall masters of their respective halls turned ugly after they were pushed out. They knew that being pushed out of the sun-moon demonic mirror meant that the cultivators had been killed in the endless world of the sun-moon demonic mirror. They had been eliminated from the High God Conference. Among the eliminated cultivators, there were two that Zhuowen was familiar with. They were the green-clothed man and the white-clothed man that Zhuowen had killed with a single move. Who the hell is that guy? He's clearly the heavenly Tao master, so how could he use such a powerful force? The green-clothed man was still in a daze as he muttered to himself in disbelief. The white-clothed man smiled bitterly and said, "I'm not sure either. I've never heard of him in the Huangji clan. I've already investigated those powerful disciples, but he wasn't among them. It seems like I've overlooked his information." The green-clothed man and the white-clothed man exchanged glances. They could see the dispirited look in each other's eyes. At the same time, they could feel a sense of weakness in their bodies. They knew that this was the aftereffect of being killed in the endless world of the sun-moon demonic mirror. They would be so weak for the next month that it would affect their cultivation. This sun-moon demonic mirror is truly mysterious. It can actually seize a strand of a cultivator's soul and create an endless world within the mirror. Moreover, it can make the cultivator feel that the endless world is the same as the real world. Even the most powerful spatial artifact can't achieve this. The enforcement elder couldn't help but exclaim in admiration as he looked at the sun-moon demonic mirror. "Enforcement elder, what kind of trash did your Hall of Penal Law send this time? Even a heavenly Tao master was sent here. Is there no one else in your Hall of Penal Law?" An ear-piercing voice rang out, causing the law enforcement elder to frown. The enforcement elder slowly turned his head and looked at the bearded man, who was walking towards him. He said coldly, "Shan Tianlong, whether our Hall of Penal Law has people or not has nothing to do with your Hall of Rules. You're meddling too much." The bearded man, named Shan Tianlong, curled the corners of his mouth and said indifferently, "Your Hall of Penal Law's Chinefe is pretty good. However, if he meets our Hall of Rules, Lu Long, I think he'll only become an insignificant stepping stone." The enforcement elder didn't want to talk to Shan Tianlong anymore, so he simply closed his eyes and rested. The Hall of Rules had always been at odds with the Hall of Penal Law, especially Shan Tianlong. In his early years, Shan Tianlong had been defeated by the enforcement elder, so he had always regarded the enforcement elder as a thorn in his side. However, Shan Tianlong later lived in the mountains, and his cultivation even surpassed the enforcement elder. Moreover, the Hall of Rules he was in charge of had become one of the largest branches of the Huangji family. It was far superior to the Hall of Penal Law and had produced many talents. Shan Tianlong was very depressed because he was defeated by the enforcement elder in the past and regarded it as a disgrace. Therefore, every time Shan Tianlong met the enforcement elder, he would mock him, especially the juniors of the Hall of Penal Law that the enforcement elder was in charge of. Chapter 2739. A sudden bet the law enforcement patriarch opened his eyes and looked coldly at Shan Tianlong. "Shan Tianlong, that's enough. I don't want to talk to you about the younger generation. After all, the results of the Flourishing God Assembly haven't come out yet. How can you be so sure that the disciples of my Hall of Penal Law are inferior to your Hall of Rules. Shan Tianlong sneered. You're quite confident this time. How about this? Let's make a bet. Let's bet on the ranking of our 2 halls. If one of us is ranked lower, that side will lose. How about it? The law enforcement patriarch frowned and hesitated. The Hall of Rules was one of the top halls in the Huangji clan, especially Lu Long, who was less than 1,000 years old, but was also at the late stage of Lord Hunyuan. Although his cultivation couldn't be compared with the galaxy of stars, his strength couldn't be underestimated. He was a well-known genius of the Huangji clan. Chun Fa could be considered the strongest disciple of the Hall of Penal Law, but he was only at the early stage of Lord Hunyuan. Compared with Lu Long, there was a big gap. The law enforcement patriarch thought of Zhuowen, and then looked at the complacent Shan Tianlong. He was silent for a moment, and then said coldly, "Okay, I'll bet with you. But what are you going to bet with me?" Shan Tianlong looked at the law enforcement patriarch in surprise. Obviously, he didn't expect the law enforcement patriarch to agree so easily. 100,000 high-grade, heavenly law origin crystals, or items of the same value. Shan Tianlong said indifferently. At this moment, Shan Tianlong and the law enforcement patriarch, who were at loggerheads with each other, had attracted the attention of the surrounding cultivators. Most of the cultivators were well aware of the grudge between Shan Tianlong and the law enforcement patriarch. Especially after Shan Tianlong proposed the bet, the surrounding cultivators were in an uproar. They subconsciously thought that the law enforcement patriarch would definitely not agree to the bet. After all, Lu Long of the Hall of Rules was much stronger than Chen Fa of the Hall of Penal Law. Moreover, the Hall of Penal Law had 5 or 6 disciples of Lord Primordial Chaos, while the Hall of Penal Law only had Chen Fa. There was a great disparity between the strength of the disciples sent by the 2 sides. No matter how one looked at it, this was a very unequal gambling fight. As long as the law-enforcing patriarch was not out of his mind, he would not agree. But to their surprise, the law enforcement patriarch was out of his mind and agreed to Shan Tianlong's bet. Many of the cultivators there secretly shook their heads. They felt that the enforcement elder was simply acting on impulse. Once all the disciples from the Hall of Justice were eliminated, he would likely regret it. 100,000 high-class Heavenly Tao origin crystals was no small number. Even Hall masters like Shan Tianlong and the enforcement elder would find it very difficult to easily take out such a terrifying number of high-class Heavenly Tao origin crystals. Just when everyone thought that the law enforcement elder would hesitate, they didn't expect that the law enforcement elder would simply nod and agree. Shan Tianlong also didn't expect the law enforcement elder to agree so easily after learning of such a huge bet. However, Shan Tianlong didn't think too much about it. Instead, he laughed heartily and gave the law enforcement elder a thumbs up. "Law enforcement elder, you are indeed a true man. You know that there are tigers on the mountain, yet you still insist on going there. It seems that I will be getting the 100,000 high-class Heavenly Tao origin crystals for free." The law enforcement elder didn't take it seriously and said, "That may not be the case. Let's wait until the results are out first." At the same time, Huangji clan's upper echelons, including Huang Wu, were standing silently on the stairs at the front of the square. Although the High God Convention would be held for nearly a year, which seemed like a long time, it was only the blink of an eye for these true cultivators. "Wuji, I heard that a few months before the High God Convention, you have been guiding Xinghe since you came out of seclusion. What do you think Xinghe's ranking will be in the High God Convention this time?" Huang Wu's bald head was like a mirror as he smiled at the ordinary youth standing behind him. The youth's appearance was ordinary and unremarkable, but apart from Huang Wu and Huang Shan, the other upper echelons were filled with respect and didn't dare show the slightest disrespect. This ordinary youth was the Huangji clan's youngest eternal overlord. Moreover, he wasn't an ordinary eternal overlord, but a peerless genius with half a foot in the third step of Tao validation. Huang Wuji would step into the third step of Tao validation in the future and become the Huangji clan's second. Almighty of the third step was just around the corner. Once he successfully advanced, he would transform into a dragon and soar into the 9 heavens. His future was limitless. Huang Wu regarded Huang Wuqi with great importance. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to consult Huang Wuqi on this matter. Huang Wuji cupped his hands at Huang Wu and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "First Master, Fifth Brother's talent is peerless. He is a true moldable talent. However, his wings aren't fully developed yet. He just lacks time. First Master, if you ask me what Xinghe's ranking will be, I think that if he is second, no one would dare to be first. All the disciples participating in the High God Convention are nothing in front of Xinghe. To put it bluntly, the High God Convention is Xinghe's stage. Even Lu Long from the Hall of Rules, Zhao Nianming from the Hall of Clouds, and Ku Tiancheng from the Tianluo Hall can't compete with him." Huang Wuji's voice was very gentle, but it contained great confidence. This was his absolute confidence in Galaxy of Stars. Huang Wu and Huang Shan both smiled. They didn't doubt Huang Wuji's words at all. It had to be said that the Huangji clan was extremely fortunate to have produced 2 great geniuses in their younger generation, Huang Wuji and Galaxy of Stars. They believed that the Huangji clan's power and influence would expand greatly in the next few thousand years. Especially if Huang Wuji could advance to the third step, the Huangji clan would be one of the best among the Tao palaces in the entire host region. There would be very few Tao palaces that could compete with them. Moreover, Xinghe should be able to successfully reach the second step this time. His cultivation base should be able to rise to at least the Master of Destiny. If his luck is good, his cultivation base will soar and reach the Master of Profound Secrets. Huang Wuqi added, Huang Wu, Huang Shan, and the other higher-ups were moved. If what Huang Wuji said was true, then Galaxy of Stars was indeed too abnormal. They didn't doubt that Galaxy of Stars could reach the second step with the help of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror and become the Heavens Will Master. However, to soar 2 realms and become the Heavens Will Master was too abnormal. If Galaxy of Stars could really soar 2 realms, then he would be worthy of being the number 1 genius of the Huangji clan. Even Huang Wuji would be overshadowed. Wuji's analysis is reasonable, but plans can't keep up with changes. It's already very good that Galaxy of Stars can advance to the Heavens Will Master level. As for the Heavens Will Master, it will depend on his own fortune. We'll just wait and see, Huang Wu said modestly, but his face was full of joy. There was no trace of modesty in his expression. Chapter 2740. Sun Moon Mountain 5 days later. Zhu Wen put away the flames, and his gaze fell on the incomparably huge mountain in front of him. The surface of the mountain was bare, but there were all kinds of complicated patterns on the dark surface of the mountain. Zhu Wen could not understand these patterns at all. He vaguely felt that these patterns should be some kind of seal mark that even he could not understand. The clone of the Zhurong venomous insect stopped in front of this mountain. Does this mean that the venomous insect of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror is hidden in this mountain? Zhuowen murmured to himself, but his eyes were full of passion as he looked at the mountain in front of him. The venomous insect was right in front of him, as if it was at his fingertips. It also meant that his Pangu's sacred body would advance to the 4-star level and complete the final transformation. However, after Zhuowen calmed down, he did not make a move. Instead, he looked at the complicated patterns on the mountain and fell into deep thought. These patterns were too complicated. and the surface of the patterns flashed with red light, giving Zhuowen an extremely dangerous feeling. He knew that it would be inappropriate for him to rashly go up. This is the Sun-Moon Mountain, the origin of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror. It is the core energy source of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror. It is said that the venomous insect of the Sun-Moon Demon Mirror is sealed in this origin. An indifferent voice came and attracted Zhuowen's attention. Zhuowen looked up and saw a man slowly walking out of the rock wall on the east side of the mountain. The man was about 30 years old and exuded the elegant temperament of a scholar. At this moment, he was looking at Zhuowen with a smile. "You are." Zhuowen looked at the elegant man in front of him in confusion. The elegant man was stunned. Obviously, he did not expect that Zhuowen did not know him. However, he quickly returned to normal and said with a smile, "My name is Huang Ju. I am also ranked 4th among the direct descendants of the Huang Ji family. People usually call me the 4th prince." Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. After hearing Huang Ju's name, he was no longer interested in talking to him. Zhuowen knew what the princes of the Huangji aristocratic family were like. He didn't want to have too much involvement with them. Furthermore, Zhuowen had taught the second prince, Huang Yi, a lesson in front of everyone. The other princes would definitely be unhappy and would think that it was a slap to their prince's face. If he were to meet the other princes, Zhuowen had no intention of speaking nicely to them. Huang Ju also saw Zhuowen's lack of interest in him, so he smiled and said, "I've heard of you. You seem to be called Zhuowen. You're the first one who dares to hit my second brother in public in the Huangji clan. I'm very interested in you." Zhuowen shrugged and did not plan to pay attention to Huang Ju. Instead, he focused on observing the Sun-Moon Mountain in front of him. He was thinking about how to release the ancestral, which grew worm in the Sun-Moon Mountain. As long as he could come into contact with the ancestral, which grew worm, Zhuowen was confident that he could refine it for his own use with his Pangu's sacred body. However, the Sun-Moon Mountain was currently the biggest obstacle that prevented him from coming into contact with the ancestral, which grew worm. Huang Ju saw that Zhuowen had no intention of paying attention to him. His eyes were a little gloomy, but he quickly returned to normal. "I can see that you're very interested in this Sun-Moon Yao Mountain. However, I think that you shouldn't even dream of opening it. This Sun-Moon Yao Mountain has been sealed by my Huangji family for generations. Even if a creator were to come, he would have to return empty-handed." Huang Ju said indifferently. Zhuowen was shocked. The creator was the first of the 3 realms of the 3rd step of Tao validation. He was considered a true almighty. Even the creator could not do anything about the seal on the Sun-Moon Mountain, so it was naturally impossible for Zhuowen to break it. His Panga's sacred body was too low, let alone his original body. Although Zhuowen had a terrifying trump card like Ho Yi's divine arrow, in Zhuowen's opinion, Ho Yi's divine arrow could only kill an eternal overlord at most. When it came to a terrifying almighty at the level of the creator, Zhuowen was not confident that the Ho Yi's divine arrow would have an effect on an expert at the level of the creator. Since even the creator could not do anything about the Sun-Moon Mountain, Ho Yi's divine arrow might not be able to break it open. However, it's not impossible to open the Sun-Moon Mountain. Huang Ju observed Zhuowen's expression. When he saw that Zhuowen was frowning, he knew that the latter was very interested in the ancestral, which grew worm in the Sun-Moon Mountain. "Oh, you have a way to open the Sun-Moon Mountain?" Zhuowen looked at Huang Ju and asked. Huang Ju looked at Zhuowen strangely and said, "You are from the Hall of Penal Law, right? Didn't your law enforcement elder tell you the process and details of the Flourishing God Convention?" Zhuowen shook his head and did not explain. In fact, the law enforcement elder had given him a jade slip that recorded the rules and details of the Flourishing God Convention. Because Zhuowen was busy with his seclusion, he had given the jade slip to Chen Fa. After he came out of seclusion, he had forgotten about it. Therefore, even though the Flourishing God Convention had begun, Zhuowen still did not know much about it. Huangju didn't mind it too much and continued, "Actually, I'm sure you know the rules of the Delicate God Convention. The purpose of this convention is to collect the fragments of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror and use them to improve your cultivation base. You will also have to fight with other cultivators over the fragments. Moreover, the more fragments you collect, the stronger you will be. The Sun-Moon demonic mirror will also rank the cultivators who have collected the most fragments. It's said that when the battle royale of the High God Assembly reaches the end and there is only one person left, he will force all the fragments out of his body and put them on the peak of this mountain. The seal will be released for a quarter of an hour, and the ancestral shaman parasite sealed inside will appear. The ancestral witch-goo worm that appears will emit an extremely pure energy that can be directly imbued into the cultivator and help him to improve his cultivation. Of course, the imbuement of the ancestral witch-goo worm can only last for a quarter of an hour. If it exceeds that time, the ancestral witch-goo worm will go out of control. At that time, if you are not careful, you may lose your life." When he spoke up to hear, Huangju glanced at Zhuowen with interest and continued, "Brother Zhuo, from the looks of it, you seem to have come for the ancestral shaman parasite's blessing, right? The imbuement of the ancestral, which goo worm is indeed a good thing. However, you must have the corresponding strength. I'm afraid you will not be able to do it." At this point, Huangju shook his head. Obviously, he felt that Zhuowen's cultivation was too low. The possibility of him surviving until the end in this endless world was too small. However, he did not underestimate Zhuowen. This person was only a heavenly Dao master, but he was able to defeat Huang Yi, a Dao Yuan master. His strength was somewhat terrifying, and he was not a simple person. In Huangju's estimation, Zhuowen's strength was between the peak of Dao Yuan master and the early stage of Han Yuan master. In his opinion, Zhuowen was a companion worth roping in. After all, in his opinion, Zhuowen's development potential was better than the other Dao Yuan masters and Han Yuan masters. A mere heavenly Dao master could easily defeat a Dao Yuan master. If this guy was promoted to Dao Yuan master, he would not be weaker than a late-stage Han Yuan master or even a peak Han Yuan master. Chapter 2741. An invitation from Huangju. Zhuowen suddenly realized that if he wanted to get in touch with the ancestral sorcerer's venomous insect, he would have to win first place in the High God Assembly. Zhuowen didn't care about the ranking of the High God Assembly. In his opinion, the participants of the High God Assembly were all from the younger generation. Even the galaxy of stars, who had extraordinary talents, was nothing in Zhuowen's eyes. This was because he knew that it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill the galaxy of stars. After all, his Pangu's sacred body had already reached the peak of the 3-star level. He could easily defeat any ordinary master of destiny. "Thank you very much." Zhuowen cupped his hands toward Huangju. He didn't want to have any more contact with Huangju and was about to leave. However, Huangju obviously didn't want to let Zhuowen leave just like that. He blocked Zhuowen's path. Zhuowen frowned and looked at Huangju, who was blocking his path, and said coldly, "Brother Huangju, what is the meaning of this?" Huangju smiled and didn't mind Zhuowen's rude tone. He said with a faint smile, "Brother Zhuo, you don't have to be so wary of me. To be honest, we don't have any conflicts of interest. We can cooperate." Zhuowen sneered and said sarcastically, "Huang Yi is your second brother. I crippled his right hand in front of everyone. Don't you have any grudges?" Huangju smiled disdainfully and said, "Huang Yi is only my second brother in name. He's actually just a good-for-nothing with poor talent. Most of his cultivation was boosted by divine herbs. It's basically impossible for him to advance to a higher realm in the future. In terms of status, he is far inferior to me. Moreover, among the 5 of us, other than the eldest heir, Huang Wuqi, who is the first master's son, the other 4 are only the first master's adopted sons and are not related by blood. Huang Yi's talent isn't good enough. Sooner or later, he will step down from his position as heir. I don't even care about this kind of trash, and I won't offend a genius like you for this kind of trash. When Huang Ju said that Huang Yi was trash, her voice was full of righteousness, without the slightest bit of guilt. Of course, Zhuowen was not worried about this. Regardless of whether the relationship between Huang Ju and Huang Ju was really good, he did not intend to cooperate with Huang Ju. He could see that Huang Ju was very scheming. If he cooperated with such a person, it would be easy to fall into his hands. Of course, with Zhuowen's strength, no matter how scheming Huang Ju was, it wouldn't affect Zhuowen much. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks were just paper tigers. Brother Huang Ju, I'm used to being alone. I'm not used to working with others, so I'll take my leave now. See you later. Zhuowen was too lazy to waste his breath on Huang Ju, so he cupped his fists and disappeared like a gust of wind. Huang Ju was stunned on the spot, and his face suddenly turned green and white. In the end, he calmed down, but deep in his eyes, there was a strong killing intent. Ungrateful bastard, if I see you again, I'll make you regret your rude behavior this time. Huang Ju's eyes were cold, and he didn't deliberately chase after Zhuowen. The High God Conference would last for a whole year, and it had just begun. Most of the cultivators would not choose to fight to the death. Instead, they would tacitly agree to collect the demonic mirror fragments to increase their cultivation. In the middle and later stages of the High God Conference, the conflicts between the cultivators would become more and more intense due to the lack of demonic mirror fragments. At that time, the battles between the cultivators would become extremely fierce. At that time, the real battle royale would begin. Every cultivator would want to kill the others and obtain the energy of the demonic mirror fragments from them to become stronger. But now, the process of collecting the demonic mirror fragments was relatively peaceful. After all, people like the Galaxy of Stars, who killed without caring about the occasion and didn't care about the unspoken rules, were in the minority. Zhuowen kept moving forward. This time, he used the power of the Panga banner to spread his divine sense to a distance of 10,000 feet. He went deep into the ground and soon found more than 10 demonic mirror fragments under his feet. If other cultivators knew that Zhuowen's divine sense could extend to a distance of 10,000 feet, they would definitely vomit blood and cry out that it was unfair. Due to a strange force in the infinite world that could block divine sense, most cultivators could only extend their divine sense to a distance of 12 meters. Some were even worse and could only extend their divine sense to a distance of a few meters. It was already very impressive to be able to extend their divine sense to a distance of 10 meters. Perhaps no one in the infinite world could extend their divine sense to a distance of 10,000 feet like Zhuowen. Most of the demonic mirror fragments were buried 10 meters below the ground, or even 100 meters deep. Most cultivators' divine sense couldn't reach that deep. Therefore, many cultivators first guessed a place, and then began to dig a hole. As they continued to dig, their divine sense could get closer to the demonic mirror fragments underground. Cultivators who were lucky would be able to find some demonic mirror fragments in one go. As for those who were unlucky, they might not be able to find a single demonic mirror fragment, even after a few days of hard work. However, Zhuowen didn't need to do that. His divine sense had a range of 10,000 feet. Basically, wherever he flew past, he could clearly detect whether there were any demonic mirror fragments in the depths of the ground. He didn't need to waste time digging to confirm. Soon, Zhuowen found another piece of ground. After digging a few hundred meters into the ground, he found more than 70 demon mirror fragments. The energy of the demonic mirror fragments was very easy to absorb. Zhuowen didn't even need to refine them. He only needed to hold the fragments, and he could continuously transfer the energy from the fragments into his body and convert it into energy in his body. On average, Zhuowen only needed 3 breaths of time to absorb each fragment. Zhuowen's speed of finding the demonic mirror fragments was really fast. On average, he could find hundreds to thousands of fragments in a day. He absorbed all the energy in these fragments. Zhuowen's cultivation level was also steadily increasing. However, Zhuowen felt helpless because his physique was too special. In the past half a month, he had collected nearly 10,000 demonic mirror fragments and absorbed all of them. He could clearly feel that his cultivation level had indeed increased. However, he realized that he was still a long way from breaking through to the Daoyuan Master Realm. If it were other cultivators, they would have broken through to the Daoyuan Master Realm or even reached the peak of the Daoyuan Master Realm after absorbing so much energy from the demonic mirror fragments. However, Zhuowen still hadn't reached the threshold of the Daoyuan Master Realm. I'm really a bottomless pit. The amount of resources I need to advance to the Daoyuan Master Realm is 1,000 times more than other cultivators, Zhuowen muttered to himself in a self-deprecating manner. Just as Zhuowen was lamenting about his strange physique, he suddenly stopped and landed on the ground. The world Zhuowen was in was filled with endless rocks. Apart from rocks, there was nothing else in this world. It was a real world of rocks. Just now, he had casually scanned the ground beneath his feet and realized that this underground world was unusual. Chapter 2742. A huge discovery. The ground under his feet was very deep. Zhuowen spent quite some time and only found sporadic demon mirror fragments. However, Zhuowen knew that this underground was not simple. It was purely a feeling. Moreover, his divine sense had not reached its limit, so Zhuowen continued to push his divine sense deeper. Finally, at a depth of nearly 10,000 feet below his feet, which was the limit of Zhuowen's divine sense, he saw a scene that shocked him. In his divine sense, there were piles of demon mirror fragments at a depth of 10,000 feet below the ground. Just on the surface that Zhuowen scanned, there were close to 10,000 demon mirror fragments. There were even more demon mirror fragments in places that his divine sense could not reach. If it was not for the fact that Zhuowen's divine sense was not long enough, he believed that he could scan more demon mirror fragments. There was no doubt that there was a huge reserve of demon mirror fragments at a depth of 10,000 feet below his feet. He estimated that there were at least 50,000 demon mirror fragments, or even more. If he could obtain so many demon mirror fragments, Zhuowen knew that his original body might be able to advance to Daoyuan Master. I have to dig out all of these demon mirror fragments. Zhuowen's eyes were burning with passion as he began to dig the ground. As this was a world of rocks, even the ground was covered with rocks. Moreover, these rocks were not ordinary rocks. Even if Zhuowen used the heavenly Tao's divine power to condense a shovel, he had to use all his strength to dig a few feet into the ground under his feet. With Zhuowen's current digging speed, it would take at least 3 months or even longer to dig to a depth of 10,000 feet below the ground. It was precisely because this world of rocks was different from the ground of other worlds that there were very few cultivators who searched for and dug out demon mirror fragments in this world. Even if there were cultivators who passed by, they would take a detour and leave when they realized that the ground of this world of rocks was so difficult to dig out. In particular, when some cultivators saw that Zhuowen was digging alone there seriously, they would basically secretly laugh at him and leave as a joke. Zhuowen paid no attention to the cultivators who passed by and mocked him. Time flew by, and 2 months went by in the blink of an eye. Zhuowen had already dug a distance of over 900 zhang. As for the cultivators in the infinite worlds, most of them had more or less gained something. Some lucky cultivators had obtained a considerable amount of demon mirror fragments. After absorbing their energy, their cultivation had improved greatly and made a breakthrough. Among them, the most famous was the Galaxy of Stars. It was said that the Galaxy of Stars had already become a half-step Destiny Master and was extremely close to becoming a Destiny Master. Of course, from the moment the Galaxy of Stars entered this infinite world, they started a massacre. The Galaxy of Stars did not spare any of the cultivators they encountered along the way and killed them all. Therefore, most of the eliminated cultivators in the square outside the Sun-Moon demonic mirror were basically thanks to the Galaxy of Stars. It was also because of this that the Galaxy of Stars was infamous in the infinite worlds. Most cultivators were unwilling to encounter the Galaxy of Stars. Even if some cultivators accidentally encountered the Galaxy of Stars, the first thing they did was immediately run for their lives. Before the Galaxy of Stars could get close, those cultivators had already fled without a trace. In addition to the Galaxy of Stars, Zhao Nianming of the Union Hall, Ku Tianlong of the Tianluo Hall, and Lu Long of the Law Hall had also performed very fiercely. It was said that these three people had also gained a lot and had all become half-step Destiny Masters. However, although these three people's cultivation levels were the same as the Galaxy of Stars, none of them dared to take the initiative to provoke the Galaxy of Stars. The Galaxy of Stars was a true genius. When he was at the peak of Primordial Chaos Master, he had once defeated a Destiny Master. Now that he had become a half-step Destiny Master, his strength must be even more terrifying. The combat strength of the Galaxy of Stars could not be measured by cultivation levels. Zhao Nianming, Ku Tianlong, and Lu Long were considered geniuses. However, even if they had become half-step Destiny Masters, they would only have a 50% chance of defeating an ordinary Destiny Master. They simply could not reach the level of the Galaxy of Stars. Therefore, even if their cultivation levels were the same as the Galaxy of Stars, none of them were willing to face the Galaxy of Stars. Huang Ju's talent was also terrifying, but this guy was too low-key. Basically, he rarely heard any sensational news. However, he still could not be underestimated. Second Prince, isn't that the Zhuowen you've been talking about? This guy is actually digging in this rock world. Is this guy an idiot? A group of people swept over from the rock world. Among them, a young woman in a red dress saw the figure of Zhuowen, who was digging up the demonic mirror fragments, and recognized Zhuowen. In front of this group of people was the extremely handsome Huang Yi. At this moment, Huang Yi followed the woman's finger and saw Zhuowen's back. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness and malevolence. I've traveled far and wide to no avail. I was just about to look for that bastard. I didn't expect to meet this bastard like this. Huang Yi sneered. There must be something wrong with this guy's head. The ground of this rocky world is the hardest in the infinite worlds. Even a peak cultivator like Lord Primordial would have a hard time digging it out. Yet this guy is still digging, and digging so deep. The woman in the red dress looked at Zhuowen, who was still digging in the distance, as if she was looking at an idiot. She knew very well how hard the ground of this rock world was. If she were to dig, it would take her 4 to 5 months to dig a 10,000 feet deep hole. Thinking that this guy spent so much time digging such a big hole, not only did the woman in the red dress find it unbelievable, but Huang Yi and the others also found it funny. There's indeed something wrong with this bastard's brain. Let's see just how much of an idiot this bastard is. Huang Yi was not in a hurry to find trouble with Zhuowen. Instead, he stopped not far away and looked down at Zhuowen with his arms crossed in front of his chest. Zhuowen had already seen Huang Yi and the group of people. He sneered in his heart, but did not pay attention to this group of clowns. Huang Yi brought a group of 8 people. The strongest among them should be an early-stage Hunyuan master, while the rest were peak Daoyuan masters. Such a lineup could be said to be magnificent and powerful. Ordinary cultivators would not dare to provoke them. However, in Zhuowen's eyes, they were simply clowns. Zhuowen did not bother to pay attention to these people. His heart was burning because he was about to dig 10,000 feet into the ground. Ding! Suddenly, there was a crisp sound. Then, Zhuowen wiped off the loose soil under his feet, and a surge of energy rushed towards him. Zhuowen was too familiar with this energy. It was the energy aura of the demon mirror fragments. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and began to collect the demon mirror fragments crazily. Those are demon mirror fragments? How can there be so many demon mirror fragments? Chapter 2743. Snatched by force, Second Prince. There are so many demonic mirror fragments, 1,000 zhang underground. I estimate that there are at least tens of thousands of them. With so many demonic mirror fragments, we can all cultivate to the peak of Hunyuan Master if we divide them evenly. The woman in red was the first to come back to her senses. Her beautiful eyes were filled with passion and greed as she quickly said to Huang Yi. She was still sober and knew that the person in charge was Huang Yi. Naturally, she could not be the first to take action. She should wait for Huang Yi's order. Not only the woman in red, but the rest of the people around Huang Yi were also looking at Huang Yi. Clearly, they could not wait any longer. Ha! This bastard is really lucky. After digging for a few months like an idiot, he really dug out a treasure. Let's go. Don't attack first. Let's collect the demonic mirror fragments first. Huang Yi was wise. He did not plan to deal with Zhuowen directly. Instead, he arranged for the others to collect the demonic mirror fragments first. The number of demonic mirror fragments that Zhuowen had dug out was too shocking. Even if all of them worked together, it would still take them half a day. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as Huang Yi finished speaking, the others rushed out like a gust of wind and frantically collected the demonic mirror fragments in the huge pit. Huang Yi also joined the team in a frenzy. Zhuowen only glanced at Huang Yi's group and ignored them. Instead, he focused on collecting the fragments. The number of demonic mirror fragments that he had dug out was too shocking. He estimated that there were more than 100,000 of them. He just wanted to collect them as soon as possible. After all, the energy that erupted from so many demonic mirror fragments was very terrifying. It would definitely attract the attention of many cultivators in the surrounding worlds. If too many cultivators came, he would not be able to stop them all by himself. Since Huang Yi and the others were in the same group, Zhuowen did not feel bad about letting them collect a part of the demonic mirror fragments. He knew that after he was done collecting, he would find Huang Yi and the others to settle the score. They would not be able to escape. The group had a tacit understanding. They did not interfere with each other and collected the fragments quickly. Of course, Zhuowen was the fastest. Zhuowen's doppelganger was Devour. With Devour's innate devouring power, Huang Yi and the others could not collect the fragments in time. For hours later, the demonic mirror fragments in the huge pit were all collected into Zhuowen's great world. Zhuowen made a rough estimation and discovered that he had obtained a total of over 80,000 demon mirror fragments this time. Huang Yi and the rest should have collected close to 20,000 demon mirror fragments in total. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, black shadows to the great Yan's world. Clearly, some of the cultivators near the rock world were attracted by the demon mirror fragments in the giant pit. Huang, 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 Huang are Huang studio of artist studio to studio of the way studio of is our studio is our studio is. By Huang he walked forward and looked at Zhuowen coldly. Hand over all the demonic mirror fragments you have. Then kneel on the ground and apologize to me. If you do that, I can consider sparing your worthless life and making you my lackey. You can try if you want me to apologize. If you can defeat me, I will apologize to you and be your lackey, Zhuowen said calmly. Huang Yi's eyes flickered. He did not attack, but took a few steps back. He had exchanged blows with Zhuowen in the square before, and his right hand had been crippled by this fellow. He knew that if he attacked, he would be no match for this guy. He might even end up worse than before. Humph! How dare you be so arrogant when you are just the master of the heavenly law? I will teach you a lesson on behalf of the second prince. A man who was as thin as a bamboo pole. Behind Huang Yi sneered. He glanced at Zhuowen with disdain before shooting out like a cannonball towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen looked at him strangely. It seemed like this man had not heard of the feud between him and Huang Yi. After all, this man's cultivation was only at the peak of the Daoyuan master realm. Although he was stronger than Huang Yi, there was a limit to his strength. If this skinny man knew about the fight between Zhuowen and Huang Yi, he would not have rushed forward alone. Zhuowen simply did not care about such a clown. His right fist shot out and smashed into the man's arm. Immediately, the man miserably shrieked as a cluster of bloody mist erupted from his arm. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. Zhuowen took a step forward. As the man flew backward, he punched out again and hit the man's chest. A powerful force exploded, and the man's chest caved in. Then the man arched his body, and a cloud of blood exploded from his back. In the end, the man screamed in pain and exploded into pieces. He was dead. Except for Huang Yi, everyone else was stunned. Obviously, they did not expect a mere heavenly Tao master to be so powerful that he could kill the skinny man at the peak of the Daoyuan master realm with a single punch. Huang Yi had wanted them to join forces because he knew Zhuowen's strength was not simple. However, the skinny man was too impatient. He attacked before Huang Yi could say anything. By the time Huang Yi wanted to remind them, Zhuowen had already killed the skinny man. Everyone, be careful. This man is not simple. Let's kill him together and take the demon mirror fragment from him, Huang Yi quickly reminded them. Even without Huang Yi's reminder, the others had already joined forces and flew toward Zhuowen after seeing the skinny man's tragic end. At the same time, before they arrived, various powerful attacks had already landed on Zhuowen's body. These were all experts at the peak of the Daoyuan master realm. There was even an expert at the early stage of the Hunyuan master realm. Their combined attack was extremely terrifying. Even the experts at the intermediate and advanced stage of the Hunyuan master realm did not dare to take such a terrifying attack head-on. Although Zhuowen was extraordinary in their opinion, he was just a heavenly Tao master. Under such a joint attack, he would definitely die. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, there was a crisp sound from the huge light ball in front of them. Immediately, the huge energy light ball was destroyed in an instant. A figure walked out slowly like a god or a demon. The attack of more than 10 of you is so weak. It's too trashy. Zhuowen, who was like a god or a demon, walked out slowly and looked down at Huang Yi and the others who were already in a daze. Zhuowen didn't speak any further. He took a step forward and shot out like an arrow that had left the bow, and he pierced through this group of people with extreme speed. The first person he came to was the lady in the red dress who had mocked him earlier. He threw out a punch that looked ordinary. However, the lady in the red dress retreated quickly as if she was avoiding the god of plague. Unfortunately, she was locked in place by Zhuowen's killing intent, and it was useless for her to retreat. When she had nowhere else to retreat to, she gritted her teeth and took out a red brocade. It transformed into a red snake and suddenly shot out to meet Zhuowen. However, it was a pity that Zhuowen merely grabbed it and gently twisted it. The red brocade was casually torn apart by Zhuowen. The lady in the red dress screamed as she felt the fear of death. Chapter 2744, The Spreading News Boom. After Zhuowen tore apart the red brocade, he punched the woman in the red dress in between her eyebrows. Her screams came to an abrupt end. Zhuowen muttered to himself as he flew towards another cultivator beside him. This cultivator also took out his natal divine artifact. Unfortunately, they were just paper tigers under the power of the Pangu's sacred body. His natal divine weapon was shattered with one punch. The remaining force of the punch did not diminish and landed on the cultivator's chest. Immediately, the cultivator was beaten into a bloody mist and couldn't be more dead. Zhuowen's voice rang in the ears of Huang Yi and the others like a soul-reaping messenger from hell. They could not help but tremble in fear, especially when they saw that their besiegement was useless against Zhuowen and that he was killing their cultivators as if they were chickens. They were truly terrified from the bottom of their hearts. Bang! 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 3 for 8. Zhuowen threw out 8 punches in a row and killed 8 people in one fell swoop. The remaining 5 or 6 people were all stunned. Their bodies trembled, and they quickly retreated. Lu Qi, go! Hold this person back. Huang Yi was terrified. He quickly ordered his personal guard beside him and kept retreating. There were 4 people beside Huang Yi. They all huddled together and did not dare to get close to Zhuowen. Lu Qi was Huang Yi's personal guard. Lu Qi had already attacked Zhuowen when they were in the square. If it were not for the law enforcement patriarch's timely intervention, Zhuowen would have killed Lu Qi in the square. Lu Qi's expression was solemn. From Zhuowen's performance just now, he knew that this boy's strength was above his. However, he was very confident. He knew that the white-clothed young man in front of him was indeed powerful, but there was a limit to his strength. He had no problem holding this young man back for a while. Lu Qi waved his sleeve and took out a hook that looked like a crescent moon. The end of the hook was connected to a black chain. Clang! Clang! Lu Qi swung the hook with all his might. The hook flew out along with the chain, like a long dragon. It was extremely fast as it meandered through the air. Not long after, the hook arrived in front of Zhuowen. Before Zhuowen could react, the hook suddenly sped up bypassed Zhuowen and went straight for the back of Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen stood in the same spot, not moving at all, as if he had not reacted at all. The corners of Lu Qi's mouth curled up into a grin. He knew that if this Zhuowen couldn't react in time, then he would definitely die. His natal divine artifact directly targeted a cultivator's divine soul. Once the back of the head was pierced, the divine soul would immediately receive a fatal blow and collapse. In Lu Qi's opinion, even a peak Hunyuan master would die if he didn't defend against his hook and allowed it to pierce into the back of his head. This bastard is dead for sure. When Huang Yi saw this scene from a short distance away, the corners of his mouth heaved a sigh of relief, and he revealed a rather happy expression and a trace of pleasure from taking revenge. Clang! The sound of metal clashing suddenly rang out. Immediately after, Lu Qi was shocked to find that the moment his natal divine artifact hit the back of Zhuowen's head, not only did it not pierce through, but it was also bounced off. It was as if the back of Zhuowen's head wasn't made of flesh and blood, but was forged from the hardest iron and stone. How is this possible? Lu Qi screamed, and immediately tried to withdraw the hook. Unfortunately, Zhuowen had already made his move. As soon as he grasped the chain connected to the end of the hook, he exerted force with his palm, and the chain on the hook collapsed into powder. Zhuowen grabbed the hook and fiercely threw it out. His strength was extremely great, and wherever the hook passed, terrifying sparks would explode. This was a phenomenon caused by the intense friction with the air. The hook was too fast. Lu Qi had only turned around, but before he could even begin to run, the hook had already sunk into the back of his head. Lu Qi screamed and fell to the ground, motionless. Run! The moment Lu Qi was killed, Huang Yi realized that something was wrong. He had underestimated Zhuowen's strength. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately took out an escape talisman, crushed it, and disappeared on the spot. The 4 cultivators also crushed the escape talismans they carried with them and fled without hesitation. Unfortunately, Zhuowen naturally wouldn't let the 4 of them succeed. The moment the 4 of them crushed their escape talismans, Zhuowen used the space-time ability Waning Sun above the sea. In an instant, with Zhuowen as the center, the space-time within a range of 10,000 feet in all directions was locked. The 4 cultivators who were a beat slower were immediately locked by the space-time ability. Their bodies froze and their movements slowed down. When they finally adapted to the space-time lock of the waning sun above the sea, monstrous waves rose from the endless space-time ocean below, instantly drowning the 4 cultivators. After the 4 cultivators let out a miserable scream, there was no more sound. Huang Yi, do you think you can escape? Zhuowen stopped using the space-time ability and took out the space-time roulette. Like a bolt of lightning, he instantly disappeared on the spot and chased after Huang Yi. The battle on Zhuowen's side was extremely short. When the battle ended and Zhuowen took out the space-time roulette and left, the cultivators who heard the news arrived above the huge pit. When they found the huge pit that was extremely deep and still had the aura of the demon mirror fragments, they all thought that there must be a lot of demon mirror fragments before the huge pit. The crowd was in an uproar. At the same time, some of the cultivators who passed by before and saw Zhuowen made the connection. They knew that the cultivator who had obtained such a great advantage must be the one they mocked. Now that they thought about it, these cultivators who had mocked Zhuowen were filled with regret. They didn't expect that there would be such a huge amount of demon mirror fragments underground. We must find this person. I remember that this person is only the heavenly Tao master. How can he be qualified to have so many demon mirror fragments with such a low cultivation level? We must kill him and take the demon mirror fragments. Spread the news. I have this person's image, so I can easily recognize him. Let's kill him together and split the demon mirror fragments equally. Therefore, more and more cultivators found out that a cultivator who was only the heavenly Tao master was very lucky to have dug a huge pit with at least 100,000 demon mirror fragments. The cultivators in the entire endless world began to spontaneously search for the lucky cultivator, all wanting to take advantage of him. If the person who had obtained such a terrifying number of demon mirror fragments was a terrifying existence like the galaxy of stars, no one would have any ideas about it. Chapter 2745.K. Yi Qiancheng. Brother Zhui actually obtained so many demon mirror fragments. Now that they've been exposed, I'm afraid it's not a good thing. He'll be hated by everyone in this place. In a forest world, a young man looked at the communication jade talisman in his hand with a worried expression. This person was Chun Fa from the Hall of Criminal Law. The message was sent by a few of his good friends. With the help of the communication between friends, the message spread very quickly. Hee. Interesting. Isn't this the Zhuo who beat up second brother in the square last time? This guy's strength is weak, but his luck is heaven-defying. He actually dug out so many demon mirror fragments. However, these demon mirror fragments will soon be mine. In the dark cloud world, The galaxy of stars put away the communication jade talisman and licked his lips with a bloodthirsty look in his eyes. Those who knew the galaxy of stars knew that this was a sign that the galaxy of stars had found a new prey. Cultivators who were targeted by the galaxy of stars did not have a good ending. This Zhuo is quite lucky. It seems that I'll have to find this guy again. In a waterfall, the corners of Huang Ju's mouth curled up slightly. There were 5 cultivators behind him. These 5 cultivators were all primordial chaos masters. The weakest one was at the early stage of primordial chaos master, while the strongest one was already at the peak of primordial chaos master. Huang Ju had already become a half-step destiny master. In addition, many cultivators had joined the ranks of searching for Zhuo. Even the extremely famous Yunyan Halls, Zhao Nianming, Tianluo Halls, Ku Tiancheng, and the Hall of Rules Lu Long were the same. In the face of the temptation of 100,000 demon mirror fragments, almost no cultivator could resist. The protagonist of this incident, Zhuo, did not know that he was wanted by everyone and had become a delicious prey in everyone's eyes. At this moment, he was activating the space-time roulette. Its speed was extremely fast, almost surpassing the speed of light. Soon, he saw the back of Huang Yi, who was escaping with the help of the escape talisman. Huang Yi noticed Zhuo, who flashed over explosively from behind as well, and he was terrified out of his wits, causing him to madly withdraw another escape talisman before crushing it with the intention of speeding up. Unfortunately, no matter how fast Huang Yi's escape talisman was, it was not faster than the speed of the empty roulette. Not long after, Zhuo caught up with Huang Yi. Zhuo impolitely grabbed Huang Yi by the collar and lifted him in front of him. Zhuo, I'm the second son of the Huangji clan. Do you dare to kill me? Huang Yi shouted himself hoarse. However, Huang Yi's trembling body betrayed him. Idiot! Zhuo merely uttered these 2 words as he pointed his sword finger at Huang Yi's glabella. Huang Yi's eyes were wide open as he breathed his last breath. His spiritual soul dissipated, and he could not be more dead. After killing Huang Yi, Zhuo took out Huang Yi's storage ring and retrieved all the demon mirror fragments from it. Although in the world of the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, only a trace of the primordial spirit had entered it, the Sun-Moon demonic mirror was extremely powerful. The simulation was almost the same as the real world. The usage and retrieval of the spiritual ring were exactly the same as the outside world. Zhuo was looking forward to it. He knew that with the 100,000 demon mirror fragments, it would not be a problem for his original body to advance to the Daoyuan Master Realm. I need to find a place to cultivate in seclusion, Zhuo muttered. When he was about to leave the place, his eyes turned cold. Immediately, a burst of 7-colored energy burst out from the ground under his feet. It fell like rain and instantly enveloped Zhuo. Zhuo's eyes were cold. The moment he put away the space-time roulette, he left the place. When he appeared 1,000 meters away, he happened to see the 7-colored energy explode where Zhuo had been. The terrifying energy was constantly compressed and burst. If an ordinary Hunyuan master was not careful, he would be seriously injured even if he did not die. You didn't die. Your reaction is not bad. A soft sound of surprise was heard. Immediately, a figure broke out from the ground below and floated in the air. He looked at Zhuo in surprise. This person was quite handsome. He had a standard square face and a dignified temperament. After this person broke out of the ground, another 3 figures followed closely behind him, all of them looking at Zhuo with malicious intentions. Senior Brother Ke, we are lucky to meet this guy. As long as we kill this guy, we can get 100,000 demon mirror fragments. A round-faced cultivator behind the square-faced man said excitedly. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. It seemed that the news that he had obtained 100,000 demon mirror fragments had spread so quickly. This made Zhuowen a little speechless. Originally, he thought that it would take some time for the news to spread. Now, the news had spread as soon as he had obtained 100,000 demon mirror fragments. It seemed that he would inevitably become the target of public criticism. The four people in front of him were obviously here for the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. Wealth moved people's hearts. I am Ku Tiancheng of the Tianluo Hall. I don't want to know your name. Now, hand over the 100,000 demon mirror fragments, and I will not kill you. I will let you continue to gain experience in this infinite world. The square-faced man put his hands behind his back and looked at Zhuowen proudly. In his eyes, Zhuowen was just a worthless heavenly Tao master. It was completely lucky for him to obtain 100,000 demon mirror fragments. Now that Ku Tiancheng, was a famous genius in the Huangji family, it was natural for him to take the 100,000 demon mirror fragments from the hands of the heavenly Tao master. Senior brother Ku is indeed benevolent. He actually plans to let this ant go. If it were me, I wouldn't even waste my breath. I would kill this kid and take away the 100,000 demon mirror fragments from this ant. How can we compare to senior brother Ku? He is a magnanimous person. We can't compare to him. Kid, if you know what's good for you, quickly hand over the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. The three cultivators behind Ku Tiancheng spoke one after another. Their words could be said to be full of admiration for Ku Tiancheng. This made Ku Tiancheng feel extremely comfortable as his gaze landed on Zhuowen. What if I don't give it to you? Zhuowen spoke slowly. Immediately, the three cultivators who were talking one after another were stunned. The surroundings also became unbearably silent. Then you are courting death. Senior brother Ku, you don't even need to deal with this kind of ant. I will deal with it for you. The round-faced cultivator was the first to react. Without waiting for the other two cultivators to react, he flew out alone and used a killing move. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Zhuowen with a single move. The remaining two cultivators had looks of regret on their faces. They hated themselves for being too slow and allowing the round-faced cultivator to beat them to it. Zhuowen stretched out his right hand and grabbed the round-faced cultivator's fist. Then he twisted it fiercely. The round-faced cultivator let out a miserable scream as his right arm was twisted. Chapter 2746. Desperate, the surroundings were dead silent. The smiles on the faces of Ku Tiancheng and the two cultivators behind him froze. What's going on? The heavenly Tao master killed Yuan Biao in one move. How can he be so strong? The two cultivators looked at each other and saw fear and disbelief in each other's eyes. Ku Tiancheng's eyes darkened. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "It seems that you have hidden your strength well. Although your cultivation is not high, your strength is actually so strong. It seems that you didn't get the 100,000 demon mirror fragments by luck. However, you met me today. If you don't want to be eliminated now, hand over the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. I'll spare your life and let you go." Ku Tiancheng's tone was domineering and unquestionable, although Zhuowen's display of strength had shocked him. In his opinion, the gap between him and this kid was still too big. If this kid fought against him, he would definitely lose. Therefore, he felt that the wisest choice was for this kid to hand over the 100,000 demon mirror fragments to save his life. Zhuowen glanced at Ku Tiancheng indifferently and said, "I've said it before. These 100,000 demon mirror fragments are mine. Why should I give them to you?" whether it's that person or you, what right do you have to ask for them in front of me? And what obligation do I have to hand them over to you? Hearing this, Ku Tiancheng's face darkened. You really don't know what's good for you. Do you really think you're invincible after killing Yuan Biao? Yes, Senior Brother Ku is now a half-step heavenly fate master. You're just an ant in front of him. He didn't kill you and only asked you to hand over the demon mirror fragments. That's already the greatest mercy. How dare you refuse? The two cultivators behind Ku Tiancheng continued to mock Zhuowen. Moreover, the two of them hinted that Ku Tiancheng should kill Zhuowen and snatch the demon mirror fragments. Ku Tiancheng pressed his right hand down, and the two of them immediately fell silent. Looks like you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Ku Tiancheng's eyes were cold as he looked at Zhuowen. He no longer concealed the killing intent in his eyes. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out from Ku Tiancheng's body, forming a terrifying energy storm behind him. From afar, this energy storm looked like a ferocious head that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It looked down as if it wanted to swallow the mountains and rivers. The two cultivators behind Ku Tiancheng had already distanced themselves from him. Both of them were only Dao Yuan masters. The reason why they could follow Ku Tiancheng was that they were disciples of Tianluo Hall and could be considered as Ku Tiancheng's junior brothers. When Ku Tiancheng met the two of them in the endless world, he naturally brought them along on the account that they were from the same sect. Otherwise, given Ku Tiancheng's character, it was impossible for him to bring two burdens with him. Zhuowen stood quietly on the spot, his eyes as calm as an ancient well. Ku Tiancheng was indeed a genius, although he was only a half-step destiny master. However, the aura he emitted was extremely vast and terrifying. It was no weaker than that of an ordinary destiny master. Zhuowen knew that Ku Tiancheng could fight with an ordinary destiny master based on the aura that Ku Tiancheng was displaying. However, Zhuowen was not afraid at all. His Pangu's sacred body was only at the peak of the 3-star level. However, the power of the Pangu's sacred body was much stronger than that of an ordinary cultivator. According to Zhuowen's estimation, the strength of the 3-star Pangu's sacred body was comparable to that of Master Xuanji. It was much stronger than that of a destiny master, let alone Ku Tiancheng, who was only a half-step destiny master. Are you sure you want to fight? Zhuowen asked faintly. Ku Tiancheng laughed, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "Why shouldn't I fight? Because if you fight, I'm afraid you'll regret it. At that time, you'll even lose your life. I'm just reminding you out of kindness so that you won't regret it," Zhuowen said carelessly. This guy really has a problem with his brain. Senior Brother Ku can completely destroy this little bastard with one move. This little bastard still dares to be so arrogant. The two cultivators standing behind Ku Tiancheng in the distance sneered. Their voices were very loud and had no intention of hiding it. Ku Tiancheng did not speak anymore. He took a step forward and shot out like an arrow toward Zhuowen. In Ku Tiancheng's eyes, Zhuowen was already a dead man. There was no need for him to waste his breath on a dead man. Boom! Zhuowen punched out and collided with Ku Tiancheng's fist. Immediately, the crisp sound of bones cracking was heard. Ku Tiancheng's fist shattered directly. Even his entire arm was bent and twisted. Ku Tiancheng's reaction was very fast. The moment the fist shattered, he immediately retreated and dodged Zhuowen's next sure-kill punch. The fight between Zhuowen and Ku Tiancheng was very short. It was only one move, but the outcome was obvious. Zhuowen was still standing in the same place. His feet had not moved at all. On the other hand, Ku Tiancheng was in an extremely sorry state. Not only was his right hand bent, but he had also suffered serious internal injuries. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, and his eyes were in a trance. The two cultivators who were talking in the distance were stunned and speechless when they saw the two people who had separated in the blink of an eye, especially when they saw that Ku Tiancheng was actually crippled in one move. The shock in their hearts reached an extreme level. "Who the hell are you?" Ku Tiancheng hurriedly took a few steps back again and looked at the white-clothed young man in front of him in shock. He felt more deeply than the two people who were watching the fight in the distance. The moment his fist collided with Zhuowen's, he felt a force that even he was afraid of erupting from his opponent's fist. At that moment, he felt the threat of death. It was precisely because he felt the threat of death that Ku Tiancheng immediately retreated and was lucky enough to avoid Zhuowen's next fatal punch. Zhuowen did not answer Ku Tiancheng's question. Instead, he took a step forward and turned into an afterimage as he rushed toward Ku Tiancheng. Ku Tiancheng's pupils shrank. His eyes flickered, but he did not escape immediately. Instead, he roared, and the aura in his body soared dozens of times in an instant. His aura was so vast that it was as if it could swallow the sun and the moon. Even Zhuowen was a little moved. "He's burning his blood essence?" Zhuowen was surprised. He quickly guessed Ku Tiancheng's actions. Bang! Ku Tiancheng stomped on the ground, causing the entire ground to shake violently as if there was an earthquake. Ku Tiancheng was like a furious lion as he rushed toward Zhuowen recklessly. Boom! 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 In an instant, Zhuowen and Ku Tiancheng bombarded each other. Their fists were slanting on each other's body, as if their lives depended on it. It had to be said that Ku Tiancheng's strength and speed had increased greatly after burning his blood essence. Even Zhuowen could not catch Ku Tiancheng's movements sometimes, so he was hit in the vital parts of his body by Ku Tiancheng's fists. Fortunately, Zhuowen's Panga's sacred body was too hard. Although Ku Tiancheng's attacks were powerful, they only caused minor injuries when they hit the Panga's sacred body. Chapter 2747. Chapter 2. Ku Tiancheng and Zhuowen were courting death by fighting each other head-on. Zhuowen knew that the reason why Ku Tiancheng was still attacking was that he was holding on to the last breath in his body. If he released his last breath, Ku Tiancheng would immediately lose all his fighting strength and die from serious injuries. Zhuowen admired Ku Tiancheng's stubbornness. Although Ku Tiancheng was here to snatch his things, Zhuowen admired his stubbornness. "Ku Tiancheng, let me send you on your last journey." Zhuowen's faint voice was heard. Then he clenched his right hand into a fist, and the sound of bamboo joints exploding was heard. Zhuowen's right hand suddenly punched out. The power of this punch was too terrifying. While it was still in the air, there were continuous sounds of thunder. At the same time, wherever the fist passed, there were many kinds of strange phenomena, such as storms, thunderbolts, flames, etc. It was terrifying and harmful. Puff! Ku Tiancheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, but there was not much fear in his eyes. Instead, they were full of fighting spirit. Knowing that he was no match for Zhuowen in a head-on fight, he still punched out at Zhuowen. Puff! Ku Tiancheng's arm exploded into a bloody foam. Then, the power was too terrifying. It spread from Ku Tiancheng's arm to his whole body. Finally, Ku Tiancheng exploded into a bloody fog. His body and soul were completely destroyed. Zhuowen withdrew his fist and stood there, his gaze falling on the two cultivators in the distance. Seeing Zhuowen looking at them, the two practitioners hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged for mercy, hoping that Zhuowen would let them live. The two were very smart. After seeing Zhuowen's strength, they knew that it was useless to run away. They might as well put down their pride and beg for mercy. Maybe Zhuowen would let them go out of compassion. Unfortunately, Zhuowen did not give them a chance. He waved his sleeves and shot out two flowing lights. The two of them didn't even have time to react before they were killed by the two streams of light. After killing Ku Tiancheng and the other two, the energy of the demon mirror fragments in their bodies flowed into Zhuowen's body. It was especially so for Zhuowen. The energy of the demon mirror fragment in his body was too vast. Zhuowen's cultivation had improved by a large margin. However, there was still a long way to go before he could become a Dao Yuan master. Zhuowen knew that if he wanted to become a Dao Yuan master, he would have to rely on the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. Thinking of this, Zhuowen was eager to find a place for seclusion. However, in the process of looking for a place for seclusion, Zhuowen often encountered cultivators who were looking for him. Every time a cultivator saw him, they would immediately recognize him and rush towards Zhuowen like moths to a flame, unceremoniously trying to kill him. All along the way, to Zhuowen, it was simply a path of slaughter. It was a path of bones that was built with blood and piles of bones. In the huge square of the Huangji clan, the sun-moon demonic mirror stood quietly at the top of the central tower. At this moment, the sun-moon demonic mirror displayed the names of the people who were listed in order. There were only a total of 100 names. Among the 100 names displayed on the mirror, the first name was Galaxy of Stars, the second name was Huangju, and the third to fifth names were Lulong, Zhao Nianming, and Ku Tiancheng respectively. At the head of the square, Huang Wu stood with his hands behind his back. He smiled as he looked at the first and second names displayed on the sun-moon demonic mirror. Big Brother, Galaxy of Stars, and Huangju did not disappoint us. They took the first and second places respectively. The fat second head, Huang Shan, grinned and laughed loudly. His voice was loud and arrogant. Congratulations to the two heads. The fourth prince and the fifth prince are geniuses among the direct descendants. This is really a blessing to the Huangji clan. Together with the first prince, the Huangji clan's meteoric rise is just around the corner. That's right. The Huangji clan will be even more prosperous under the leadership of the princes. Many hall masters in the square cupped their hands and congratulated Huang Wu and Huang Shan. Disciplinary Elder, our Hall of Rules Lulong is now third, but I don't seem to see anyone from your Hall of Penal Law in the top 10. Oh, I'm sorry. I seem to be in the top 100, but I don't see any disciples from your Hall of Penal Law. There was something wrong with my eyes just now. Please forgive me, Disciplinary Elder. In the square, the Hall of Rules Hall Master, Shan Tianlong, stood beside the Disciplinary Elder. He raised his head and looked at the sun-moon demonic mirror. The Disciplinary Elder's eyes were gloomy, but he was very anxious in his heart. In his opinion, it shouldn't be a problem for Chen Fa to enter the top 100, and it was also very likely for Zhuowen to enter the top 10. However, Chen Fa and Zhuowen didn't enter the top 100, let alone the top 10. This made the Disciplinary Elder very suspicious. Did Chen Fa and Zhuowen get eliminated? However, after looking around, he found that Chen Fa and Zhuowen were still sitting cross-legged around the central tower. There were no signs of them waking up. It was obvious that the two of them hadn't been eliminated. Suddenly, everyone noticed that there was a change in the top of the tower. An unfamiliar name quickly jumped up and landed in the second position, pushing Huangju to the third position. Everyone focused their eyes and found that the name in the second position was Zhuowen. To everyone, this name was extremely unfamiliar. Many of them had never heard of this name before. Who is this person? How come I've never heard of a genius called Zhuowen in the Huangji clan? To be able to enter the top 10, he must be a famous genius in the Huangji clan. It's really strange that I've never heard of this person. When Zhuowen's name entered the second position, it caused a great uproar in the square. Discussions were like a tsunami, wave after wave, layer after layer. The disciplinary elder, who was originally frowning, almost jumped up in joy when he found that Zhuowen's name was in the second position. Shan Tianlong, who was standing beside the disciplinary elder, had a gloomy face. He was familiar with the name Zhuowen. He knew that this guy had the lowest cultivation among the disciples sent by the disciplinary elder. He was only the master of the heavenly law. Before the start of the High God competition, Shan Tianlong had mocked Zhuowen's cultivation. Chapter 2748. Breaking through to the Dao Yuan master realm. Looking at the complacent expression on the enforcement elder's face, Shan Tianlong was extremely displeased and said coldly, Zhuowen should be lucky to have found the underground space with a large number of demonic mirror fragments. However, this can only mean that he is lucky. The real ranking is actually decided in the last month before the end of the High God Assembly. This kid's cultivation is so weak that he is at the bottom of the High God Assembly. If he can't keep so many demonic mirror fragments, I'm afraid he will be eliminated very soon. The enforcement elder didn't reply. He knew that Shan Tianlong was only saying this because he wanted to save face. However, he knew Zhuowen's strength. He knew that with Zhuowen's strength, he had the confidence to enter the top 10. Even if it was the final battle royale, it wouldn't be a problem for him to remain in the top 10. Seeing that the enforcement elder didn't say anything, Shan Tianlong snorted coldly and didn't say anything. He didn't want to look for trouble. Who is this Zhuowen? When did such a genius appear in our Huangji clan? At the front of the square, Huang Wu frowned slightly and couldn't help but ask Huang Wu Qi and the other higher-ups behind him. However, the answer he received was that they didn't know. Even Huang Wu Qi didn't know who Zhuowen was. This person's luck is pretty good. He should have found the huge vein of the demonic mirror fragments and obtained a large number of demonic mirror fragments. That's why his ranking jumped from the top 100 to the second place in an instant. However, this kid's luck won't always be so good. When the real battle royale begins, this kid should be eliminated immediately. Huang Wu Qi shook his head and didn't care about Zhuowen, who occupied the second place at all. Huang Wu and Huang Shan nodded. They believed that Zhuowen must have found a large number of demonic mirror fragments by luck to occupy the second place. As for this kid's strength and talent, it was probably just passable. They were afraid that he would be exposed soon. At the same time, 3 figures suddenly stood up around the tower. One of the figures caused an uproar among the surrounding cultivators. It was because this figure was none other than Ku Tiancheng, the number 1 genius of Tianluo Hall, who was one of the 5 most favored candidates this time. At this moment, Ku Tiancheng walked out of the fence with an ugly expression and walked towards the team from Tianluo Hall. The hall master of Tianluo Hall was an old man with a rosacea nose. When he saw that Ku Tiancheng had been eliminated just like that, his face was especially gloomy. Tiancheng, who eliminated you? Is it the galaxy of stars, Huangju, or Zhao Nianming, and Lu Long? The old man with rosacea asked. Ku Tiancheng sighed softly and shook his head, saying, I don't know that person's name, but that person is very strong. He is only the heavenly law lord, but he has the strength of the heavenly fate lord and even the lord of profound secrets. I was eliminated by that person. Now, he was completely dispirited. He never thought that he and the white-robed young man would be so terrifyingly strong. It was unbelievable that a heavenly Tao Lord could kill him. Ku Tiancheng was not the only one who found it unbelievable. Even the old man with rosacea found it unbelievable. He thought that his disciple's brain might have gone haywire. How could he say such nonsense now? The news that Ku Tiancheng was defeated by a heavenly Tao Lord spread quietly among the people in the square. Of course, everyone treated it as a joke. No one believed that a mere heavenly Tao Lord could defeat Ku Tiancheng, who was already a half-step heavenly fate lord. After all, the gap between their realms was too big. Zhuowen was covered in blood. Finally, he found a natural cave. This was the most secluded place he could find along the way. Now that Zhuowen went out, almost all the cultivators he encountered would attack him. He knew that it was because of the 100,000 demon mirror fragments on him. Although Zhuowen was covered in blood, Zhuowen knew that he was not seriously injured. Most of the blood on his body belonged to other cultivators. Zhuowen spent half a day to set up a huge defensive array, surveillance array, and trap and kill array at the entrance of the cave. Then he entered the depths of the cave. Finally, I have time to absorb the demon mirror fragments. I hope that these demon mirror fragments can help my cultivation to advance to the Daoyuan Master Realm. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He took out a pile of demon mirror fragments and began to absorb the rich energy in these demon mirror fragments crazily. Time flew by. Another month had passed. Half a year had passed since the beginning of the bustling God Conference. The battles between the cultivators in the endless world were getting more and more intense. The matter of the 100,000 demon mirror fragments on Zhuowen's body was slowly forgotten by everyone in the past month. If Zhuowen were to appear outside again, he wouldn't be in a situation where he was besieged on all sides and wanted to be beaten up by everyone. Boom! The depths of a cave suddenly exploded, and a figure slowly walked out from the dust. His entire body was elegant, and not a single speck of dust was stained on him. This person was Zhuowen, who had been in seclusion for a month. At that moment, Zhuowen's eyes were bright and full of expression, like the bright stars in the sky. Finally, I have broken through to the Daoyuan Master Realm. However, the energy in my Daoyuan Master Realm is so rich that it is no less than the peak of Hunyuan Master. Now, even if I don't use the power of the Panga's sacred body, I can still fight with the peak of Hunyuan Master Realm with my Daoyuan Master Realm. I can even have an overwhelming advantage. Zhuowen smiled faintly as he muttered to himself. The harvest of this month could be said to be extremely bountiful for him. Soon, Zhuowen's communication jade charm rang. Zhuowen picked it up and found that it was a message from Chun Fa. After reading the message, Zhuowen took out the space-time roulette, chose a direction, turned into a streamer, and disappeared. According to the message from Chun Fa, he found the huge demon mirror fragments, Earth Vein, and needed Zhuowen's help. Time was running out. This was a world full of steel. Everything here was made of steel. Whether it was flowers, trees, birds, or beasts, they were all made of steel. In a steel canyon, Chun Fa and his 5 fellow disciples were trapped by a group of people. The leader of this group was an extremely arrogant and domineering young man. His yellow hair stood up like the spikes on a hedgehog. He was very unique. At this moment, the young man was holding a communication jade charm in his hand and was sending some kind of message. "Lu Long, what do you want?" Chun Fa saw Lu Long using the communication jade charm and could not help but ask anxiously. The young man named Lu Long casually threw the communication jade talisman in his hand at Chun Fa's feet after he finished inputting the information. He said indifferently, "Chun Fa, your communication jade talisman is pretty useful. You managed to gather all the brothers and sisters of the Hall of Penal Law in no time. By the way, we are still missing that heavenly law master trash. I have already sent a message to that trash and gave him the location. I think that trash will be here soon. When that trash arrives, I will take care of all the participants in the Hall of Penal Law. Chapter 2749. Lu Long Chenefei's eyes were gloomy as he glared at Lu Long. Lu Long, are you planning to eliminate all of us from the Hall of Punishment? Lu Long chuckled. Chenefei, you're really slow. I used your communication talisman to gather so many of your brothers and sisters, and you're only reacting now? Chenefei had a guilty expression as he faced his 5 brothers and sisters. Junior brother, junior sister, Chenefei, have let you down. The 5 people standing behind Chenefei were all disciples of the Hall of Punishment, 3 men and 2 women. Zhuowen had seen them before entering the convention. The 5 of them shook their heads and comforted Chenefei not to blame himself too much. Senior brother Chen, senior brother Zhuo is very strong. If he comes, I think he can save us. One of the female disciples was quite optimistic. Chenefei was silent, but there was also some hope in his heart. Back then, Zhuowen had displayed his might in the Hall of Punishment and defeated Zhou Ling. One had to know that Zhou Ling was also a half-step heaven's mandate master, the same as Lu Long. Although Lu Long's combat strength was slightly stronger than Zhou Ling's, it was not by much. Since Zhuowen could defeat Zhou Ling, there was a high chance that he could defeat Lu Long. Of course, as the number 1 genius of the Hall of Punishment, Lu Long's strength wasn't limited to this. He was much stronger than ordinary half-step heaven's mandate masters and could reach the strength of ordinary heaven's mandate masters. In Chenefei's opinion, even if Zhuowen couldn't defeat Lu Long, it shouldn't be a problem for him to save them from Lu Long. At this thought, Chenefei felt a lot more relaxed. Lu Long's face was full of disdain. Oh, when did the Hall of Beheadings and Executions fall so low? He mocked. You're relying on the ant-like heavenly Tao master to save you, and you really believe that the ant-like heavenly Tao master has the ability to save you? Don't make me laugh my head off. If senior brother Zhuo was here, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to laugh. You should know that even our vice hall master was defeated by him. You're only a half-step heaven's will lord. The female disciple was indignant. Lu Long's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a contemplative look. If what this female disciple said was true, then Zhuowen's strength was too strong. Moreover, he was only the heavenly Tao master. Making things up? Are you trying to scare me? Lu Long walked up and slapped the female disciple's face, causing her to fall to the ground, barely breathing. What is Zhou Ling? He's just a guy who knows how to curry favor with others to obtain cultivation resources. How can he be compared to me? Back when I wasn't a half-step heaven's will lord, I might have been afraid of Zhou Ling. But now that I'm also a half-step heaven's will lord, I can defeat that trash in one move. It doesn't matter if the heavenly Tao master you speak of is really that strong. If he comes in front of me, I can still trample him under my feet and ruthlessly trample him. Lu Long kicked the female disciple again, causing her to groan in pain and fall unconscious. Chenefei and the others hurriedly brought the female disciple back to their side. Their eyes were filled with hatred as they glared at the arrogant Lu Long. Zhuo Wen drove the space-time roulette at an extremely fast speed like a stream of light. After leaving seclusion, Zhuowen had used a secret technique to change his appearance slightly. At the same time, he also concealed his aura. More than a month ago, he was besieged by many cultivators and fought a bloody battle. Now that he thought about it, it was somewhat tiring. Therefore, in order to avoid being discovered, Zhuowen restrained himself. Fortunately, although Zhuowen encountered many cultivators along the way, none of them recognized Zhuowen. Zhuowen knew that if they recognized him, he would have been besieged long ago. At that time, he would definitely be in a difficult situation. Zhuowen didn't want to expose himself so quickly. He knew that in the later stages of the Flourishing God Conference, there would definitely be a large battle royale spontaneously. At that time, it would be a real killing situation. At the same time, it was also the most crucial time of the Flourishing God Conference. The final ranking of the Flourishing God Conference would be completely decided at that time. I'm about to reach the location Brother Chen sent me, Zhuowen exclaimed softly. His powerful spiritual sense had already swept the scene within a range of 3,000 meters. The world he had entered was a world full of steel. Every blade of grass and every tree was cast from steel. In a certain canyon in this world, there was a group of people confronting each other. Rather than calling it a confrontation, it was more accurate to say that one side had surrounded the cultivators of the other side, who were at a disadvantage. Zhuowen was no stranger to the group of people who were at a disadvantage. They were Chen Fa and the others from the Hall of Penal Laws. Zhuowen was also no stranger to the insolent young man who was leading the group. He was the #1 genius of the Hall of Penal Laws. Lu Long Chen Fa had mentioned this person to him before, because the Hall of Penal Laws and the Hall of Penal Laws had never been on good terms. The disciples of the Hall of Penal Laws participating in the Flourishing God Conference would definitely be targeted by Lu Long and his group. At that time, Chen Fa had only wanted to give Zhuowen a reminder. At the same time, Zhuowen noticed the communication jade talisman that was casually thrown on the ground. He recognized the communication jade talisman. It was Chen Fa's. Soon, Zhuowen figured out the details of this matter. Most likely, there was no such thing as a huge demonic mirror fragment earth vein in this place. Moreover, this news was not sent by Chen Fa himself. It should have been deliberately released by Lu Long. His purpose was obvious. He wanted Zhuowen to come and let Lu Long catch them all in one fell swoop. Thinking up to here, Zhuowen sneered in his heart and didn't conceal it. Instead, he leisurely charged towards the gorge, and under the gazes of Lu Long and the others, he descended into the gorge. When Lu Long and the others saw Zhuowen land in front of them, they could not help but be stunned. Obviously, they did not expect Zhuowen to be so arrogant. He knew that they were in the canyon, but not only did he not run away, he even landed so calmly. Lu Long from the Hall of Penal Laws. Zhuowen landed on the ground and slowly walked towards Lu Long. Lu Long grinned and looked Zhuowen up and down, saying, "It seems that my luck is quite good. I caught a fat sheep. I heard that a month ago you found a huge demonic mirror fragment earth vein, and you also obtained 100,000 demonic mirror fragments inside. Is that true?" Chapter 2750. Killing. Ants like killing ants. Yes, I did obtain 100,000 demon mirror fragments. To Lu Long and the other surprise, Zhuowen admitted it generously. Chen Fa and the others looked anxious. They felt that it was unwise for Zhuowen to admit it like that. However, there was nothing they could do. Right now, they couldn't even protect themselves, not to mention having to worry about Zhuowen. They simply couldn't care less. Lu Long's eyes were filled with fire. He shrugged at Zhuowen and said, arrogantly, "If that's the case, hurry up and hand it over. Otherwise, you won't be able to keep your life." Zhuowen sneered. Lu Long had a good idea. He stretched out his hand to ask for the demon mirror fragments, as if they were his own. "Idiot, it's been a month. I've already absorbed the 100,000 demon mirror fragments. How can I give them to you?" Zhuowen said indifferently. Lu Long's eyes darkened. He laughed sinisterly and said, "Since you've already absorbed them, you should die. After I kill you, the energy of the demon mirror fragments in your body will naturally be mine." After saying that, Lu Long took a step forward and pointed with his right finger. An extremely strange black thunderbolt condensed on Lu Long's fingertip. The black thunderbolt was extremely dark and deep. It was like a strange energy from hell blooming with a terrifying light. Thunder Soul Demonic Finger, you'll die here today to fulfill my wish. After killing you, I'll be able to completely advance to the heavenly fate master. In this boundless world, who can compete with me? Lu Long's eyes were ferocious and full of pride. When he pointed with his finger, the black thunderbolt cut through the void and formed a thunderstorm that covered Zhuowen. The moment Lu Long made his move, the 8 cultivators beside Lu Long also made their move. The 8 cultivators were very smart. They knew very well that if they attacked and killed a cultivator at the same time, they would also be able to get a share of the loot from the cultivator and obtain a portion of the demon mirror fragment's energy when the cultivator died. Lu Long did not say much about the little scheme of his fellow disciples. He just turned a blind eye to it. In his opinion, the power of his Thunder Soul Demonic Finger was the most terrifying. It would definitely be a fatal blow to Zhuowen. After Zhuowen's death, he would undoubtedly obtain the most demon mirror fragments. He did not particularly mind sharing some of them with his senior and junior brothers. After all, they were from the same sect. Since they could meet in this boundless world, he should naturally take care of them. Bam, bam, bam. In the endless thunderstorm, there was an endless series of terrifying attacks. It was like a chain of explosions, and the energy that escaped was extremely terrifying. Chun Fei's face was gloomy, and the female disciple's face was as pale as snow. There was a look of dismay in her eyes. She knew that everything was because of her. If she did not reveal Zhuowen's background, Lu Long would not have used his full strength at the beginning to target Zhuowen. Now, Lu Long used a killing move at the beginning. Coupled with the help of the 8 fellow disciples, they really had no reason to believe that Zhuowen could survive such a terrifying explosion. Just as Lu Long and the others were waiting for the energy of the demon mirror fragments on Zhuowen to flow into their bodies, they all realized that something was not right. Immediately, they realized that a boundless ocean had appeared around them. It was not an ordinary ocean, but a space-time ocean filled with space-time vortexes. At the end of the ocean, there was a huge purple sun floating in the sky. Waning sun of the sea. A faint voice sounded. Immediately, above the purple sun, a white-robed young man walked out slowly. The white-robed young man's eyes were cold. He pointed his right finger, and the calm space-time ocean set off monstrous waves. The terrifying waves were higher than the previous one. The 9 people, including Lu Long, were in the middle of the ocean. They were all covered by the huge dragons, and their screams were heard continuously. When the huge waves calmed down, except for Lu Long, the other 8 people were all brought to the bottom of the ocean by the huge waves and died completely. Space-time supernatural power, you bastard! Lu Long's eyes were filled with fear. He pointed his hands, and black thunderbolts swept out like electric snakes. They wriggled up into the sky and broke through the huge waves one after another. Lu Long's combat strength was indeed not bad. The space-time confinement power of the space-time ocean was extremely terrifying. However, after adapting to it for a period of time, he could move freely, and his speed was not slow. I will definitely kill you. Lu Long's eyes were wide open. He split open a huge wave and shot towards Zhuowen. Black thunderbolts wrapped around his body, making him look like a thunder god descending from the sky. Except for him, all the disciples of the Law Hall had been eliminated by Zhuowen. Lu Long recalled that before entering the Sun-Moon demonic mirror, he had patted his chest and promised Hall Master Shan Tianlong that he would lead the disciples of the Law Hall to get into the top 100 and that he would definitely do it. Now, all 8 of his senior brothers had been eliminated by Zhuo when right before his eyes. To him, this was undoubtedly a resounding slap to his face, and he was unable to endure it. Zhuowen looked indifferently at Lu Long, who was rushing towards him. He pointed his right finger at the purple sun in the sky and pulled. Immediately, the purple sun fell rapidly and smashed onto Lu Long. Lu Long was smashed to the point that he almost vomited bile. His entire body was smashed into the depths of the space-time sea. When Lu Long struggled to leave the depths of the space-time sea, the purple sun smashed down again under Zhuowen's control. All of Lu Long's struggles were in vain as he was smashed into the depths of the space-time sea once again. After repeating this several times, Lu Long could no longer hold on and did not resurface. The purple sun rose once again and hung in the sky, emitting a purple light. When the space-time sea had completely disappeared, Chen Fei and the others finally regained their senses. They hurriedly came before Zhuowen and looked at Zhuowen as if they were looking at a monster. Lu Long was very powerful. He was much stronger than Zhou Ling back then. Originally, they thought that it would be a fierce battle between Zhuowen and Lu Long. However, they did not expect that Lu Long was like a puppet in Zhuowen's hands. He was easily suppressed and killed. Brother Zhuo, are you really the Heavenly Tao Master? Chen Fei was stunned and could not help but ask the question in his heart. Zhuowen smiled and said, I'm not the Heavenly Tao Master. I've already advanced to become a Tao Yuan Master. When I was just the Heavenly Tao Master, I defeated Zhou Ling. This Lu Long strength is indeed not bad, but my strength has also increased a lot. Killing Lu Long is like killing an ant. Chen Fei and the others were shocked and looked at Zhuowen with reverence. Among the geniuses of the entire Huangji family, only the galaxy of stars dared to say that killing Lu Long was like killing an ant. Now, there was another Zhuowen. Chapter 2751. The great competition begins. All right, there's no need for you to look at me like that. There are still 5 months left until the start of the convention. I'll be the one leading the team, and you'll have to listen to my commands. I'll have all of you enter the top 10 of the convention, and your hall of beheadings and executions will be the biggest winner of the convention. After Zhuowen said this, he actually felt a little guilty. He had participated in the exquisite god competition with his own selfish motives. If he took the ancestral sorcerer parasite from the sun-moon demonic mirror, and the higher-ups found out, the Hall of Penal Law would be implicated. However, he knew that the enforcement elder had a high status in the Hall of Penal Law. If something really happened, his life wouldn't be in danger. However, the enforcement elder might lose his position. However, Zhuowen couldn't care less about this matter. After he took the ancestral sorcerer parasite, he would leave a message for the enforcement elder to leave the Huangji clan as soon as possible. After all, the ancestral sorcerer parasite was very important to him, and he had to get it. Seeing that Zhuowen was willing to lead them, the eyes of Chen Fei and the others lit up. After witnessing Zhuowen's strength, they had a lot of faith in Zhuowen. In their hearts, they subconsciously believed that Zhuowen was at least in existence on the same level as the galaxy of stars. With Zhuowen leading them, they really had a chance to enter the top 10 of the exquisite god competition. At this moment, in the square outside, when Lu Long's name disappeared from the sun-moon demonic mirror, Shan Tianlong's entire body stiffened. Soon after, Dan Tianlong discovered in disbelief that Lu Long had already awakened in the area around the central tower where Lu Long was located. He slowly stood up and walked out of the fence. It wasn't just Lu Long. The other 8 disciples from the Hall of Penal Law also stood up dejectedly and left the fence. Obviously, they had all been eliminated at the same time. Hall Master Shan, All the disciples from your Hall of Penal Law seem to have been eliminated. It seems like you've offended someone you shouldn't have. Don't forget our bet." The law enforcement elder also noticed that Lu Long had been eliminated. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. He knew that he had won the bet with Shan Tianlong. Lu Long had been eliminated. Clearly, he didn't even have the qualifications to enter the top 100, while Zhuowen was now firmly occupying the second place. It was obvious who would win and who would lose at a glance. Shan Tianlong's eyes were gloomy as he said, "Elder of law enforcement, don't be complacent too early. Although Sky Dragon has been eliminated, I'm afraid your Hall of Penal Law won't fare any better. There are still more than 5 months until the end of the competition, and I'm afraid your Hall of Penal Law disciples will be eliminated soon. At that time, will at most be considered a draw." The law enforcement elder did not say anything else. Instead, he looked at the sun-moon demonic mirror. He was now filled with confidence in Zhuowen. This time, Lu Long's elimination was also beyond his expectations. Of course, such a result was also a pleasant surprise for him. As long as Zhuowen could maintain his current ranking, he would be very happy. "Lu Long, did you meet the galaxy of stars inside? How did you get eliminated so quickly?" After Lu Long returned to the team, Shan Tianlong asked with great displeasure. He somewhat blamed Lu Long for being so careless and not avoiding the galaxy of stars. Lu Long smiled bitterly and said, "Hall Master, I didn't meet the galaxy of stars. Instead, I met Zhuowen of the Hall of Penal Law. That guy eliminated me." "What? How is that possible? He's just a heavenly Tao master. How could he be your opponent?" Shan Tianlong almost shouted out. He did not believe it at all. The bitter smile on Lu Long's face became even more intense. After activating the mute restriction, he told Shan Tianlong everything that had happened inside in detail. The more Shan Tianlong listened, the uglier his face became. Lu Long's elimination caused a great uproar in the square. Many people were speculating who had eliminated Lu Long. Many hall masters even went to Shan Tianlong to inquire, but Shan Tianlong seemed to have something he could not say. This made many people secretly guess that Lu Long should have been eliminated by the galaxy of stars. Although Zhuowen's ranking was also very high, in the eyes of many people, he was just a lucky nobody. No one would pay attention to such a person, and no one would associate him with Lu Long's elimination. On the other hand, the enforcement elder noticed that Shan Tianlong and Lu Long's expressions were different. He had a guess in his heart, and although he did not show it on his face, he was secretly delighted. Time passed quickly. Soon, another 4 months had passed. During these 4 months, the rankings on the sun-moon demonic mirror had changed greatly. The first place was still the galaxy of stars. This galaxy of stars was like a mountain that pressed down on all the cultivators participating in the High God Refinement Conference. It was as if it was too high to reach and could not be surpassed. To everyone's bewilderment, the second place was still that unknown person called Zhuowen. 4 months ago, everyone thought that Zhuowen had obtained the second place due to luck, and that it would not be long before he was eliminated and replaced. But 4 months had passed, and this guy's name was still in the second place, unmoving. Even the third place, Huang Ju, had not been able to surpass Zhuowen. This made many people even more curious about Zhuowen. Of course, when they learned that Zhuowen was said to be the master of the heavenly Tao, many cultivators guessed that he must have been lucky enough to obtain a large reserve of the demonic mirror fragments, and immediately hid in a secret place, not daring to come out. Therefore, he had not been discovered by the experts inside, and was lucky enough to survive until now. It was precisely because of such rumors and guesses that Zhuowen, who was ranked second, didn't obtain the respect and importance of anyone. Instead, he was taken as a negative example by many people, and they felt that this child was a cowardly and weak trash. After another month, Huang Wu, who was resting with his eyes closed at the front of the square, suddenly opened his eyes. He waved his sleeve, and suddenly most of the cultivators who were still around the central tower woke up. They stood up blankly, not knowing what was going on. There are only 3 days left until the Welling God Conference. These 3 days will be the real battle royale of the Welling God Conference. There are 337 cultivators who have survived until now, but this time, only the top 100 cultivators will be selected. In other words, only the top 100 cultivators shown in the Sun-Moon demonic mirror can continue to stay in the endless world. The remaining 237 cultivators must leave. Huang Wu's loud voice rang out. Those cultivators who had been awakened by themselves understood that they had not collected enough demonic mirror fragments to enter the top 100. This was a disguised elimination. Therefore, they all stood up in disappointment and left the area of the central tower. The real battle royale is about to begin. Next, the scene of the battle royale will appear on the Sun-Moon demonic mirror. Everyone wait and see. Huang Wu continued to speak. With a flick of his finger, the name on the Sun-Moon demonic mirror at the top of the tower disappeared and was replaced by a huge image. In this image, an incomparably huge mountain appeared. The huge mountain surface was full of strange and complicated patterns, exuding a vast and vicissitude aura. Chapter 2752. A fierce battle at this moment. Many hall masters in the square revealed gloomy expressions when they realized that the disciples from their branch halls had failed to enter the top 100 of the High God Assembly and had been eliminated. Those who had entered the top 100 and participated in the final battle royale were jubilant. If they could enter the top 100, they would definitely be rewarded handsomely. The higher the ranking of their disciples, the more generous the rewards would be. What surprised the hall masters the most was the situation with the Hall of Beheadings. This time, the Hall of Beheadings had sent a total of 7 disciples. Surprisingly, all 7 of them had entered the top 100. Moreover, Zhuowen, who was firmly in second place, seemed to be a disciple of the Hall of Beheadings as well. When they thought of this, many cultivators took the initiative to approach the disciplinary elder. Many of them were brimming with enthusiasm as they tried to worm their way into being friends with the disciplinary elder. After all, the Hall of Beheadings had sent 7 people into the top 100. Even if all 7 of them were at the bottom of the rankings, the rewards would still be extremely generous. It was said that the rewards this time would affect the future development of each hall. If a hall could perform exceptionally well in this High God Assembly, it would mean that the hall's development in the future would be swift and terrifying. Among all the halls, the Hall of Beheadings results were undoubtedly the best. They were almost on par with the Huangji clan's results. With their current achievements, the Hall of Beheadings would most likely surpass most of the other halls in the near future. Even Huang Wu and the other higher-ups couldn't help but think highly of the disciplinary elder, who was standing in the plaza with a grin on his face. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with bewilderment. When he came to his senses, he discovered that he was in the vicinity of the Sun-Moon Mountain. Back when he was searching for the ancestral shaman parasite in the Sun-Moon demon mirror, he'd already searched this place and knew that the parasite was inside the mountain. However, there was an extremely powerful seal on the surface of the mountain. With Zhuowen's current strength, it was impossible for him to forcibly break it open. As for Zhuowen, his attainments in the Tao of Arrays were only at the pinnacle of the heavenly Tao realm. He was only able to understand a very small portion of the seal runes on Sun-Moon Yao Mountain. Wanting to rely on him to undo it was nothing more than a fool's dream. That was why he had left the Sun-Moon Yao Mountains waiting for the final chaotic battle of the High God Assembly. Only by defeating all of the cultivators and taking the power of the demon mirror shards would he be able to restore the demon mirror shards. From there, he could summon the ancestral shaman goo worm in the Sun and Moon Yao Mountain, allowing it to empower him and allow him to break through to a higher realm in one go. Just now, he and Chen Fa were searching for the demon mirror fragments in a desert world when they were suddenly transported away by a wave of energy. When he woke up, he discovered that he had arrived in the vicinity of Sun Moon Yao Mountain. At the same time, he noticed that they weren't the only ones teleported to the vicinity of Sun Moon Yao Mountain. In the distance, there were other cultivators appearing from teleportation pillars. There are only 3 days left until the end of the Chrysanthemum God Assembly. I'm afraid that Lord Huang Wu has exhausted his own strength to gather everyone in the vicinity of Sun Moon Yao Mountain and begin the true battle royale. Chen Fa appeared behind Zhuowen. He walked to Zhuowen's side and solemnly looked at the pillars of light that had appeared around them, as well as the figures that walked out of them. Behind Zhuowen, aside from Chen Fa, the other 5 disciples of the Hall of Beheadings followed. However, the 5 of them were rather reserved. They followed behind Zhuowen, maintaining a respectful expression on their faces from beginning to end. Ever since Zhuowen had led them for more than 4 months, they had been practically invincible. Any cultivator they encountered had been defeated by Zhuowen. Moreover, Zhuowen was extremely considerate. After defeating the enemy, he didn't immediately kill them. Instead, he handed them over to Chen Fa and the other 5 to deal with. It was because of Zhuowen's actions that Chen Fa and the other 5 were able to enter the top 100. Moreover, the cultivation of the 7 of them had greatly improved. Chen Fa, in particular, had relied on the power of the demon mirror fragment and the assistance of the half-finished heavenly fate pill that Zhuowen had given him. He had smoothly advanced to half-step heavenly fate master, with Chen Fa's cultivation and strength. Entering the top 100 wouldn't be a problem for him. However, the remaining 5 people were barely able to make it. Thanks to Zhuowen's help, they were able to enter the top 100. Therefore, these 5 people were grateful and respectful towards Zhuowen from the bottom of their hearts. Zhuowen nodded. Chen Fa's guess was correct. Huang Wu had deliberately teleported them here in order to arrange for the final battle royale. Sure enough, just as Zhuowen had this thought, Huang Wu's ancient voice resounded in the sky. "Everyone, I'm the one who teleported you here. As for why you were teleported here, I'm sure many of you have already guessed it. The High God Convention will end in 3 days. Before these 3 days, the top 100 has already been determined. It's you. The next 3 days will be a battle royale. Only the last person standing will be able to obtain the energy of all the demon mirror fragments. Then, they will be able to reunite and obtain the opportunity to be enlightened by the ancestral sorcerer's parasite in the Sun Moon Yao Mountain. This is a great opportunity. I hope everyone will cherish it. Also, I would like to remind everyone that the scope of this battle is 100,000 feet around the Sun Moon Yao Mountain. If anyone leaves this area, they will immediately be eliminated. The final battle royale will appear in the Sun Moon Demon Mirror before everyone in the square. I look forward to everyone's performance." Huang Wu's voice resounded in everyone's ears, causing their hearts to burn with passion. Everyone knew that the enlightenment of the ancestral sorcerer's parasite was more precious than collecting all the demon mirror fragments. Kill. In an instant, the surrounding cultivators' eyes turned red. They attacked the cultivators closest to them, like crazy. The battle was on the verge of breaking out. The attacks were like colorful fireworks that exploded near the Sun Moon Yao Mountain. From afar, it was extremely dazzling. It was accompanied by the sound of metal clashing and ear-piercing sounds of fighting. A fierce battle also broke out on Zhuowen's side. 5 or 6 cultivators not far from Zhuowen joined forces and charged towards Zhuowen. These cultivators were basically primordial chaos masters. The strongest among them was actually a late-stage primordial chaos master. Chapter 27:53. Underestimating, however, Zhuowen's face was a little gloomy. He didn't expect that the final battle royale would be broadcasted so blatantly for everyone in the square to see. Didn't this mean that there would be no secrets in any of Zhuowen's methods? Thinking of this, Zhuowen secretly became more vigilant. It seemed that he needed to restrain himself in this battle royale. He decided that unless he had no other choice, he wouldn't use the Panga's sacred body in this battle royale. Now that his original body had been promoted to Daoyuan Master and had a special physique, his strength couldn't be compared to an ordinary Daoyuan Master. He could even be compared to the peak of Primordial Chaos Master. The space-time magic that Zhuowen's original body had mastered was extremely extraordinary. He also had the 3 moves of the tyrannical Dao slaughtering technique, and the 4 profound meanings of the Panga banner. Zhuowen could completely fight with the Destiny Master by relying on the strength of his original body. He could even have the upper hand. Brother Chun, follow me closely. Listen to my command. When Zhuowen saw the 5 or 6 cultivators rushing over at lightning speed, he said to Chen Fa behind him. Then he took a step forward and took the lead to meet the 5 or 6 cultivators. Chen Fa and the others had already fought side by side with Zhuowen for more than 4 months, so they tacitly followed closely behind. Each of them used their own signature moves and began to fight with the 5 or 6 cultivators. The moment Zhuowen rushed out, he immediately used the space-time magic. The boundless space-time sea shrouded the surroundings. The 5 or 6 cultivators were immediately affected by the space-time law power in the space-time sea, and their movements became much slower. Zhuowen floated in the middle of the space-time sea and didn't make a move. Chen Fa led the 5 master siblings and rushed out first to fight the 5 or 6 cultivators. Although Chen Fa and the others' overall strength was weaker than the other party, with the interference of Zhuowen's space-time sea, Chen Fa and the others had the absolute advantage. Over the past 4 months, Zhuowen had been doing the same. He had only released the space-time ocean domain to assist Chen Fa and company in battle. He had rarely taken action, so it was naturally the same this time. The battle royale proceeded in an orderly manner. Cultivators were constantly being killed off and eliminated. At the same time, there were also cultivators who killed others to obtain even greater power. The one with the strongest performance was the Galaxy of Stars. The Galaxy of Stars was like the god of death. Whenever he saw a cultivator, he would attack without hesitation. Basically, no cultivator could withstand a single attack from the Galaxy of Stars. Even though more than 10 cultivators had joined forces to attack the Galaxy of Stars, they were still defeated by the Galaxy of Stars. Most of the cultivators were slaughtered, and they were utterly defeated. In this chaotic battle, many cultivators began to deliberately avoid the Galaxy of Stars, not daring to fight head-on. At the same time, although Zhao Nianming's momentum wasn't as terrifying as that of the Galaxy of Stars, it was still extremely fast. The most low-key was Huangju. Huangju's aura was very strong, but he deliberately hid it. His attacks were like a viper hunting in the dark. When he attacked, it would be a fatal blow. Although many cultivators were deliberately on guard against Huangju, Huangju's attacks were too strange. It was simply impossible to guard against, and it was useless. The Galaxy of Stars, Huangju, and Zhao Nianming's performances were an eye-opener for the cultivators watching from the outside. They couldn't help but exclaim loudly. At the same time, many cultivators wanted to see the second-ranked Hall of Penal Laws, Zhuowen. When they finally found Zhuowen in the chaotic battle royale, they found that Zhuowen's performance was very mediocre. After releasing the space-time ocean, he didn't attack anymore. Instead, he let Chen Fa and the other disciples of the Hall of Penal Law deal with the invading cultivators. For a while, Zhuowen's group was scared but not in danger. At least, they weren't in danger of being eliminated. Of course, they couldn't be called amazing. Many people began to question whether Zhuowen was the real deal. After all, based on his performance so far, Zhuowen's performance was just passable. He didn't live up to his title of second place. This Zhuowen's performance is too bad. Look at him. He's barely able to maintain that space-time divine ability, and he still needs his companions to fight. How can such a piece of trash be ranked second in this high god assembly? It seems that our guess was right. This Zhuowen must have gotten lucky and found an earth vein that contained a large amount of demon mirror fragments. That's how he rose to second place in one fell swoop. After that, he hid in a secluded place and only came out now. This person is really insidious. Why don't we have this kind of luck? If I could get so many demon mirror fragments, I definitely wouldn't show my face in public. I would hide until the end of the High God assembly. Hee, this guy will be exposed in this battle royale. He might be killed directly later. Moreover, anyone of the galaxy of stars, Zhao Nianming or Huangju, can beat this guy up. In the square, most people's attention fell on Zhuowen. After discovering that Zhuowen's performance was mediocre, they lost interest and were replaced with ridicule and disdain. Shan Tianlong of the Hall of Penal Law laughed and looked at the enforcement elder. He said sarcastically, "Enforcement elder, it seems that Zhuowen's luck is so good that it makes me speechless. He obviously doesn't have any real ability, but he was able to get so many demon mirror fragments. I, Shan Tianlong, accept my loss wholeheartedly." The enforcement elder's face was gloomy. He knew that Shan Tianlong was using this opportunity to mock him. "Since you accept your loss wholeheartedly, hand over the 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals first," the enforcement elder said rudely as he stretched out his hand. The smile on Shan Tianlong's face stiffened and turned gloomy. He fell silent. However, the enforcement elder didn't let him off easily. Only then did Shan Tianlong reluctantly hand over the 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals. At the same time, Shan Tianlong really wanted to give himself a slap. He really didn't touch a sore spot. After handing over the 100,000 high-grade heavenly law origin crystals, Shan Tianlong returned to the group with a gloomy face. He found that Lulong's expression was very ugly. "Lulong, is this the guy who killed you? I think there's something wrong with your head." Shan Tianlong vented all his frustration on Lulong. Lulong didn't dare to refute or say anything. He knew that Shan Tianlong was in a bad mood. If he told the truth, Shan Tianlong wouldn't believe him. However, he knew that it wasn't that Zhuowen didn't have any real ability, but that this guy was hiding his strength. Just wait and see. Zhuowen's strength is amazing. In my estimation, he isn't any weaker than the galaxy of stars. When Zhuowen shows his strength, let's see if the Hall Master will still say the same thing about me, Lulong thought. Chapter 2754. Huangju makes a move. The battle royale was still going on, but the number of people was decreasing. There were originally 100 people, but now there were only 30 people left. It had only been a few hours, but nearly 60 people had been eliminated. Moreover, those who were eliminated were not ordinary cultivators. They were all true experts who had lasted until the end. From this, it could be seen how cruel the battle royale was. Pucci, suddenly, the sea of time around Zhuowen was torn apart by a terrifying attack. Then, an incomparably pitch-black palm stretched out, as if it was a life-reaping hand from hell. The pitch-black palm was too fast. Zhuowen did not even have time to react. Then the palm grabbed at Chun Fa and the others. At this moment, Chun Fa was fighting with the other 6 people. With the help of the power of the Sea of Time and Space, they were about to obtain victory. However, the pitch-black palm covered the sky, enveloping Chun Fa and the other 6 people as well as their opponents. A blood-curdling scream was heard. The 12 people, including Chun Fa, were all slapped to death by this terrifying demonic palm. After the demonic palm killed Chun Fa and the others, it didn't slow down in the slightest. It continued to sweep towards Zhuowen, its might even more terrifying than before. Zhuowen's gaze turned cold. He was too careless just now. He did not expect someone to secretly attack him. The timing of the attack was too accurate. It was the moment when Zhuowen's attention was not on Chun Fa and the others. He used a thunderous attack. In the end, when Zhuowen was not paying attention, he killed Chun Fa and the others in one fell swoop. Seeing that the demonic palm continued to rush towards him, the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes was no longer restrained and erupted. Zhuowen immediately used the 3rd move of the tyrannical Dao slaughtering art, the slaughtering Dao hand. The endless heavenly energy in the surroundings continuously condensed, turning into an incomparably huge arm. The arm swept through the air and directly slammed into the incoming demonic palm. Rumble! The giant hand and the demonic palm collided, and an extremely terrifying light burst out. This light was too blazing, and accompanied by a deafening sound. It was as if the world was about to be destroyed. Soon after, the demonic palm and the giant hand were destroyed at the same time. Zhuowen's body swayed, and his gaze involuntarily landed in the direction where the demonic palm had come from. Zhuowen's space-time sea domain had been completely torn apart by the devil palm, and Zhuowen's figure appeared outside without any leeway. Zhuowen looked in the direction where the demonic palm disappeared and saw an extremely familiar figure. This was an extremely refined man who looked to be about 30 years old. He gave off the feeling of a weak scholar. Huangju. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He did not expect that the one who launched the sneak attack was actually this Huangju whom he had met once at Sun Moonyao Mountain. Huangju still had an elegant smile on his face. He didn't feel awkward at all when Zhuowen found out. Brother Zhuo, long time no see. When we first met, it was at Sun Moon Mountain. Now that we meet again, it is also at Sun Moon Mountain. It seems that we are fated to meet. Huangju smiled and said in a clear voice. Zhuowen's eyes were cold, and he made no effort to hide the killing intent in his eyes. However, Huangju did not seem to sense the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes. Instead, he said, "Brother Zhuo, let's make a deal. I know that you've obtained 100,000 demon mirror fragments, and it's been so long. You should have absorbed all of them by now, right? How about this? You let me kill you and help me break through to the heavens mandate realm. After this high god convention, I'll make it up to you. I'll give you whatever you want." Zhuowen sneered and looked at Huangju as if he was looking at an idiot. He said, "I say, fourth prince, do you think I'll agree?" Huangju did not care and calmly said, "It's not that I don't think you'll agree, but that you must agree. This matter is not up to you. It's up to me to decide." Just as Huangju finished speaking, endless black energy suddenly burst out from under Zhuowen's feet. The black energy was like black tentacles, each as thick as a water bucket. They instantly enveloped Zhuowen from all directions. Zhuowen's figure was completely submerged by the black energy. It was impossible to see him clearly. Huangju floated not far away, with a refined smile on his face. However, the depths of his eyes were filled with coldness. Huangju's attack attracted the attention of the other cultivators in the battle royale. After seeing Huang Ju attack, the other cultivators subconsciously distanced themselves from Huang Ju, afraid that Huang Ju would target them. Huang Ju's attack style was too strange and impossible to guard against. He was the opponent they didn't want to face besides the Galaxy of Stars. The Galaxy of Stars stood on the other side of the Sun-Moon Mountain and looked at Huang Ju from afar. His gaze was calm, but the bloodthirst in his eyes was even thicker, mixed with a powerful battle intent. Zhao Nianming stood on the other side of the Sun-Moon Mountain and also looked at Huang Ju, who was taking the lead to attack Zhuowen. The three of them knew that each of them was not mediocre, so they had a tacit understanding not to fight at the beginning. Instead, they first cleaned up the other cultivators before fighting to the death. Originally, they thought that since Zhuowen was ranked so high, he must be very strong. However, in the battle royale, they carefully observed Zhuowen and were very disappointed. This was because Zhuowen's cultivation was too low, and the strength he displayed was at most Lord of Primordial Chaos. The three of them were basically half-step Heaven's Will masters, especially the Galaxy of Stars. His aura was even more unfathomable. Huang Ju and Zhao Nianming couldn't see through him. It was because Zhuowen's performance was not satisfactory that Huang Ju suddenly attacked and planned to get rid of Zhuowen first. After all, the energy of the demon mirror fragment on Zhuowen was far more abundant than the other cultivators. After killing Zhuowen, Huang Ju might break through and become a Heaven's Will master. At that time, he would have the confidence to fight the Galaxy of Stars. Zhao Nianming was secretly angry. She also wanted to attack, but she saw that the Galaxy of Stars didn't move. In addition, she was a bit far from Huang Ju, so she also didn't move. She just watched silently. The cultivators in the square were in an uproar mixed with ridicule and mockery. In their opinion, Zhuowen was a joke who got lucky. Now that Huang Ju had attacked, this kid was immediately beaten back to his original form. Boom! Just when everyone thought that Zhuowen was dead for sure, the boundary wrapped by the countless black energy tentacles suddenly collapsed. Immediately, a figure shot out and rushed towards Huang Ju. Huang Ju frowned slightly. Obviously, he didn't expect that Zhuowen still had the strength to break through the killing move he had arranged below. However, he wasn't afraid. In his opinion, Zhuowen must have been exhausted by the attack just now. If he attacked now, he could easily capture this kid,